Chapter 1532. General Blackfish was slightly shocked. He looked up and stared at Suyu with a hint of confusion in his eyes. "Who are you? How dare you interfere with the mermaid tribe's sacrifice?" After 10 years, General Blackfish had already forgotten about Suyu. Firstly, it had been a long time. Secondly, Suyu had changed too much. Thirdly, Suyu was too weak back then, so he didn't have a deep impression of him. Suyu smiled faintly. "It seems that you don't remember me." "Hey, who are you?" the little mermaid asked curiously with her charming emerald eyes. She had also forgotten about Suyu. After all, it had been 10 years. The tree goddess grinned. "Human traffickers selling little beauties, are you afraid?" The little mermaid stuck out her tongue. "Only a ghost would believe that." Suyu smiled. Many years had passed, but the little beauty was still mischievous and lively. Meeting an old friend, and Suyu needed information, it was only natural for him to rescue the little mermaid. "Let's go." Suyu turned around and didn't bother to pay attention to General Blackfish. The little grievances in the past were like smoke now that his cultivation had improved tremendously. It was not worth mentioning, and he didn't have any interest in revenge. "Stop." However, Suyu wanted to stop, but General Blackfish didn't let him go. Swish, swish, swish. 8 deity-level creatures flew out, including General Blackfish. The other 7 were always hidden in the crowd. At every critical moment, they would cause a commotion, causing many mermaids to call for the little mermaid to be sacrificed. Seeing that the little mermaid was about to be taken away, they naturally couldn't help but show themselves. Suyu was surprised. "You want to keep us?" General Blackfish stared at the tree goddess next to Suyu, a little afraid. This green-robed woman easily took the little mermaid from his hands, but he didn't react in time. This showed that she was very powerful. He said in a low voice, "I don't want to keep you. I have always been kind to people, and I don't want to make enemies unless it is necessary. However, please give me some face and let the princess go." Suyu said lightly, "You don't even know me, why should I give you face?" General Blackfish's face fell, and the 7 deities around him slowly formed a semicircle. He said, "So, you intend to be our enemy?" The tree goddess couldn't stand it anymore and sneered. "You only realized it now? Idiot." General Blackfish gritted his teeth and revealed a ruthless look. "Brothers, attack. Pay special attention to that female tree goddess." Swish, swish, swish. All of a sudden, the 7 figures split into 3 groups and attacked Suyu, the tree goddess, and Luo Xue respectively. The tree goddess laughed. "Don't do anything. I'll do it alone." She was a level 4 deity, and most of the deities besieging her were level 5 deities. How could they be a match for the tree goddess? Puff, 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 puff. After a series of dull explosions, the tree goddess summoned hundreds of huge vines, catching the 7 gods off guard. When they came to their senses, they were dumbfounded to find that they had been subdued by the vines. Their divine powers were greatly suppressed, and their divine bodies were tightly locked. General Blackfish was shocked. Level 4 deity? He turned into a beam of black light and immediately fled into the distance like a black fish. The tree goddess curled her lips. "If you escape, where will I put my face?" Chila, a sharp and slender vine wrapped itself around him at a speed 10 times faster than General Blackfish. General Blackfish was shocked. He took out his divine weapon immediately and tried to cut the vine off. However, a thumb-sized crack appeared on the divine weapon, while the vine remained intact. "Come back obediently." The tree goddess hooked her finger and pulled General Blackfish back with a whoosh. The 8 deities were subdued in an instant. Seeing this, the mermaids kept quiet out of fear. What should we do with them? Sell their souls or their bodies? As the tree goddess spoke, she unceremoniously swept away all their belongings. Even their treasured clothes were not spared. The faces of the 8 deities turned green. "Can you leave a pair of underwear for me? It's worthless." "No. This pair of underwear is made of the fur of a precious beast. It can be sold for a few crystals. How many crystals do you still need? I am the poorest deity in the world. I don't even want a single copper coin. Soon, the 8 deities, who only had their underwear left, were hung upside down on the vines. Luo Xue's pretty face turned red. Then, she said, Sister Tree Goddess, you should pay attention to your image. You have taken off their pants. Why did you leave their underwear? They're all gold-plated. If you scrape them, you might be able to scrape off a layer of gold powder. The tree goddess's eyes lit up. Then she praised, Sister Xue, you are so smart. Why didn't I think of that? Even a mosquito's leg is valuable. Su Yu's eyelids twitched slightly. Luo Xue had been led astray by the tree goddess. After plucking all their clothes, the tree goddess said with satisfaction, Hey, have you thought about how to deal with them? Little Sister Xue said that there is a special brothel in the Lost God territory. There are many men who have been trained to serve rich old women. They have soft skin and tender flesh, and they are all at the level of gods. I believe that they will definitely be sold for a good price. Hearing this, the faces of the 8 deities turned from green to black. Now they even wanted to die. After thinking for a while, Su Yu said, When did I say I would deal with them? Untie them. The tree goddess, Luo Xue, General Blackfish, and the other deities were stunned. Why? The tree goddess was reluctant to untie them. However, when she was stared at by Su Yu, she immediately released them. Her face was full of regret. It was as if she had lost all her savings. General Blackfish and the others covered their private parts with embarrassment and awe. Then, he said, What do you want? Su Yu said, I don't want anything. I just want to recommend you to be the emperor of the mermaid tribe. Are you serious? General Blackfish was shocked. The tree goddess and Luo Xue also widened their eyes. They didn't know what he meant. Su Yu said calmly, Do I need to lie to you? As he spoke, he waved his hand and summoned the little beauty. Then, he searched her body and found a mermaid scepter that had been passed down from generation to generation. It symbolized the imperial power. Take it. Su Yu threw it to General Blackfish. General Blackfish was stunned and felt that it was unreal. The little mermaid was furious. She struggled and shouted, Be *starred, how dare you help this bad guy? I won't forgive you. Su Yu stopped her indifferently and said, You can't keep the throne, so you should naturally hand it over to someone capable. General Blackfish is stronger and more prestigious than you. He is more suitable to be the mermaid emperor than you. Whether you accept your fate or not, you can't change the reality. The little mermaid was so angry that she cried. She couldn't move her body, but her tears flowed like a broken dam. She sobbed intermittently. I can't accept this. I hate you. Su Yu was unmoved and said to General Blackfish, Now, you are the mermaid emperor. General Blackfish was overjoyed. He held the scepter and pointed it at his forehead. A golden brilliance condensed in the scepter and formed a crown on General Blackfish's head. At the same time, the crown on the little mermaid's head quickly dimmed until it disappeared. The imperial power had changed hands. General Blackfish finally realized his long-cherished wish of many years. He successfully seized the imperial power of the mermaid tribe and became the tribe king. After a moment of hesitation, the mermaids below greeted respectfully, Greetings, Mermaid Emperor. Hearing the greeting he had been dreaming of, General Blackfish's heart flew to the 9th heaven. He laughed and saluted Su Yu. Thank you, Your Excellency. No, I am very grateful. Su Yu waved his hand. Don't be so quick to thank me. The mermaid tribe is in deep trouble and needs your help. General Blackfish laughed. That's easy. I will find a way to get fresh water. Why do you have to go so far? However, Su Yu smiled faintly. Isn't there a ready-made way now? The tree goddess suddenly understood Su Yu's intention. With a flick of her finger, a vine flew over and wrapped around General Blackfish. General Blackfish was shocked. What are you going to do now? I'm going to use your method to get water for the mermaid tribe, of course. Suyu smiled, but there was no warmth in his smile. According to the prophecy, as long as the mermaid emperor is sacrificed alive, rain will fall, and the sea will return to its former glory. Now that you are the mermaid emperor, you should have the responsibility of being the mermaid emperor. Lord Mermaid Emperor, please have mercy on your people and sacrifice yourself as a living sacrifice. Now that things had developed to this point, who could not understand Suyu's true intentions? He was going to give them a taste of their own medicine. General Blackfish snapped, "Are you kidding me?" He hurriedly said, "Everyone, don't believe his nonsense. I have other ways to find a new water source for everyone." However, he was horrified to find that many mermaids were staring at him with blazing eyes. The tree goddess chuckled and said, "Those are your original words. We didn't embellish them." General Blackfish raised his voice and shouted, "Everyone, please calm down. Things are not as simple as you think." However, all he got was a sneer from the tree goddess. "Mermaid Emperor, please consider the overall situation. Sacrifice yourself to help everyone. Don't you love your people?" The mermaids below begged for mercy. "Lord New Mermaid Emperor, please sacrifice us alive. We will be grateful for your kindness for 100 generations. Lord Mermaid Emperor, my child is dying. Before you find a water source, please bear with the pain for a while. When my child grows up, he will come to pay his respects to you." Hearing that they wanted him to die to help them, General Blackfish said angrily, "Get lost. Why should I die and you all live well?" He glared at Suyu and said, "Let go of me immediately, or our king will never let you go." Suyu said lightly, "If he dares to come to me, I will make sure he never returns. Sacrifice him." The tree goddess's eyes were cold. With a pull of her vines, General Blackfish was pressed into the boiling oil pot. With a miserable howl, General Blackfish was blasted to death, leaving behind only a charred corpse. The mermaids around cheered excitedly and looked up at the sky, waiting for the rain to fall. However, the sky was clear, without any wind or clouds. Why hasn't there been any rain yet? Strange, could it be that General Blackfish has just ascended to the throne, so the sacrifice failed? So, we still have to ask our little princess to sacrifice herself? Chapter 1533. A group of ignorant, selfish, indifferent, and numb creatures. Such creatures were not worthy of her protection. It seems that you don't want to go back. Come with me and I'll ask you some questions, Suyu said lightly. The group quickly left and went straight to the glazed crystal mountains. The charred corpse of the Blackfish General was abandoned at the side. No one noticed that a thumb-long black fish image had vanished with a whoosh. On a nameless hill, the little mermaid stared at the big mermaid who suddenly appeared in front of her. At first, she thought it was an illusion, but when she confirmed that it was a real person, she cried out in surprise and hugged her. The sisters reunited and chatted for a long time before Luju said, "Mr. Su has done us a great favor. If he wants to know something, you don't have to worry about it. Tell him everything, understand?" The little mermaid nodded and said to Suyu, "Ask away." Suyu said, "Tell me about the situation in the God Realm and the entire Lost Nation." You asked the right person. Our mermaid tribe was once the center of the Coalition Command. We have news from all sides, so we have a very detailed understanding of the situation. It's better than asking someone in the Empire. The little mermaid proudly raised her pair of baby pigeons. Now that the war in the Lost Nation has subsided, the Empire of Darkness has been annihilated and replaced by the Taichu Empire established by the Mermaid Emperor. The wizard tribe has also fallen into a state of recuperation because of the heavy blow and no longer set foot in the divine realm. The world is peaceful. Peace? It was the strange calm before the storm. Hearing about the heaven-defying empire, Su Yu's heart moved. Who is in charge of the heaven-defying empire now? Of course it is Nitian Hanxing. Nitian Guyon fell in the Lost Nation, so he naturally took over the empire. The little mermaid looked at Su Yu strangely. It was him. Speaking of Nitian Hanxing, his strength has grown incredibly. Not only has he reached level 2, but he is about to break through to level 1. It is said that not long ago, he met with the Mermaid Emperor, Tai Qing Yunluan, and Bing Hua Tsangxing and signed a peace agreement. During that time, they had a duel. Do you know what happened? The little mermaid's eyes were filled with awe and worship. Nitian Hanxing, with his own strength, managed to suppress the three of them, leaving them with only the ability to defend themselves. It is said that he only used one hand from the beginning to the end. He did not even use half of his strength. It's really hard to imagine how powerful he will be if he goes all out. Su Yu and Luo Xue's faces turned grave as they listened. Back then, Nitian Hanxing had escaped a calamity and had become so powerful. According to the description, he was even stronger than Nitian Guyon in the past. If they really fought one-on-one, it would be very dangerous. However, with the great enemy of the sinful lady in front of him, Su Yu had no time to pay too much attention to Nitian Hanxing. He had to find a way to enter the underground of the celestial crystal mountains and get close to the sinful lady. Knowing that the world was at peace, Su Yu had no more worries. His gaze locked onto the glazed crystal mountains. After several hours, he stood outside the mountains. However, someone else had arrived before him. That was a fish-body human head creature with a crown on its head. It sat beneath the mountain range, drinking wine in a pavilion. Beside him were 4 level 3 deities guarding him. Green Bead and the little mermaid stared at him with hatred in their eyes. This person was none other than the Mermaid Emperor, the current monarch of the Taichu dynasty. "Were you waiting for me?" Su Yu asked calmly. From behind the Mermaid Emperor, a black shadow leaped out, his eyes full of hatred. "It's him, Lord Mermaid Emperor, please help me." The Mermaid Emperor looked sideways, and his originally indifferent face gradually showed a trace of doubt. A trace of familiarity was gradually replaced by a touch of surprise. His expression changed again and again before he regained his composure. As if in deep thought, he asked, "How did he treat you?" The black shadow was undoubtedly the remnant soul of General Blackfish. He said with hatred, "This unknown kid actually used me as a living sacrifice. His methods are vicious and his heart is vicious. He doesn't take you seriously, Lord Mermaid Emperor." The Mermaid Emperor took a sip and said calmly, "Blackfish, there is one thing you are mistaken about. He is not some unknown kid, but a big shot that you definitely know." Big shot? General Blackfish was stunned. In this world, there are only a few people who can disregard me, and he is one of them. General Blackfish's expression changed. Who is he? The Mermaid Emperor smiled slightly and spat out 2 words, "Su Yu." "It's him." General Blackfish gasped, his expression filled with indescribable awe and fear. The invincible existence that led the wizard tribe and killed Nitian Guyon? Some people had already analyzed that Su Yu's combat power was above that of the rulers of the 4 great empires. In this era, only the sudden emergence of Nitian Hanxing might be qualified to be on an equal footing with him. After all, he was the existence that killed the strongest king with his own hands. How could he not know such a person? However, he never dreamed that the person he had invited the Mermaid Emperor to kill was such a world-shaking overlord. "So, do you know who you have offended?" the Mermaid Emperor said lightly. General Blackfish knelt on the ground with a thud. "I deserve to die. I have provoked a great enemy for Lord Mermaid Emperor." The Mermaid Emperor waved his sleeves and helped General Blackfish up. He smiled and said, "Why do you deserve to die?" General Blackfish rubbed his palms, which were full of cold sweat. Hearing this sentence, he felt much more at ease. It seemed that the Mermaid Emperor had decided to protect him. As the Mermaid Emperor, he also had his own dignity. If he could not protect his subordinate, how could he win the hearts of the people? However, the next sentence of the Mermaid Emperor threw him into the abyss. Because you deserve to die 1,000 times. General Blackfish only felt his vision go black, and the remnant of his soul was crushed, leaving nothing behind. On the face of the Mermaid Emperor, there was still a calm smile. He looked at Su Yu and said, I am sorry to have embarrassed myself, handsome Su. Su Yu stared at this person deeply. The Mermaid Emperor should be the tomb guard spirit. Not only was he extremely powerful, but he was also extremely cruel. He killed people with a smile, and those he killed were those who had been loyal to him since the beginning. It could be said that he was inhumane. Su Yu said lightly, Is there anything else? The Mermaid Emperor was still smiling. I hope to form an alliance with handsome Su. It was impossible for such a person to be honest, not to mention that his identity was unknown and quite mysterious. How could Su Yu trust him with his back? I don't think there is a need for us to form an alliance. Su Yu refused without hesitation, showing no mercy. However, the Mermaid Emperor did not care and said with a faint smile, I think that in the Lost Nation, the two of us are the ones who have the most need to form an alliance. Su Yu said, Why do you think so? You and I don't know each other, and we have never crossed paths. Ha ha! The Mermaid Emperor laughed. You appearing in front of this mountain range means that we have crossed paths. Su Yu's pupils narrowed slightly. You mean, the underground ancient tomb? Haha, exactly. The Mermaid Emperor said, Between you and me, we have common enemies, the sinful girl and the demonic dragon. Su Yu was slightly surprised. The demonic dragon wanted to kill Su Yu. How did he know about this? The more the other party behaved like this, the more Su Yu felt uneasy. He shook his head and said, Even so, there is no need to form an alliance. Haha, it is necessary because… The Mermaid Emperor dragged his voice. I know the weakness of the sinful girl and the demonic dragon, a weakness that can destroy them in advance. Boom. Chapter 1534. Weakness? How could such a powerful existence have a weakness? Su Yu was skeptical. He stared at him and said, At least, you have to make me believe you first. Only then will I believe what you say. Otherwise, if you harbor evil intentions and casually point out a weakness that doesn't exist, wouldn't I be courting death if I rashly oppose the sinful lady and the demonic dragon? Ha ha! The Mermaid Emperor smiled. Then what will make you believe me? Su Yu said deeply, At the very least, let me know what you are. I've seen countless tomb guardian spirits, but this is the first time I've seen one like you, who has been growing stronger and stronger, and also possesses supreme intelligence. The mysteriousness of this Mermaid Emperor was really incredible. He had come from the ancient tomb, and his strength had skyrocketed in a strange manner. After he had appeared, he had immediately started a war, and in the end, he had seized the Eternal Darkness dynasty and become the monarch of one of the 4 great dynasties of the God territory. In terms of mystery, no one could surpass him. Ha ha ha, the monarchs of the other 3 dynasties have asked me the same question. My answer is, I am the reincarnation of the World Annihilation Emperor. The Mermaid Emperor laughed. Su Yu asked calmly, So, did they believe you? Of course not. Then, what's your answer? Su Yu stared at him. The Mermaid Emperor's smile faded, and his expression turned serious as he said, I did not lie. Was he really the reincarnation of the World Annihilation Imperial Warrior? Was that even possible? In this world, are there really living beings that can reincarnate? In your eyes, what is the Tomb Guard spirit? The Mermaid Emperor asked Su Yu. Su Yu thought for a moment and said, After the death of the divine warriors of heaven and earth, evil creatures were born from their ancient tombs. Evil creatures. The Mermaid Emperor smiled self-deprecatingly. Then do you know how the Tomb Guard spirit was born? This question stumped Su Yu. He only knew that the Tomb Guardian spirits came from the ancient tombs of the divine warriors of heaven and earth and were there to guard the remains, but he did not know where they came from. It's the soul fragment of the divine warrior of heaven and earth. The Mermaid Emperor said indifferently, the divine emperor of heaven and earth is the existence closest to the Path Master. In essence, he has already mastered the great path law of heaven and earth, and is immortal and indestructible. Especially his soul, which is embedded with the great path law chain, will not perish. Su Yu couldn't help but think of the divine thoughts of the divine warrior of Tianyun. The divine sense was of a lower level than the soul fragment. It was just a strand of the divine sense of the divine warrior of heaven and earth. However, even a thought had not been extinguished after hundreds of millions of years. It could be seen that the Mermaid Emperor's statement was not groundless. Souls can't be destroyed, but they can be crushed. However, the crushed soul fragments are difficult to destroy. They carry a portion of the power of the divine warriors of heaven and earth. They cultivate to become living beings on their own, and because there is no guidance, they condense into all kinds of strange shapes and forms. Hearing this, Su Yu was slightly surprised. As it turned out, the so-called wild beasts and tomb guardian spirits were actually the souls of the divine warriors of heaven and earth. Their existence signified the fall of the emperor. Most of them are unable to develop spiritual wisdom. Only a few of them can carry away part of the memories of the divine warriors of heaven and earth, and I am one of them, the Mermaid Emperor said. Su Yu's eyes shone as he shook his head. I still find it hard to believe. Do you have any proof? Evidence? Of course. The Mermaid Emperor smiled faintly. For example, my memory tells me that the world annihilation plate you imitated has at least 10 parts that are completely wrong. Especially the real use of the world annihilation plate, it is completely wrong. Su Yu's heart skipped a beat. After thinking about it, he took out the shrunken world annihilation plate. Are you talking about this? The Mermaid Emperor smiled slightly and said, May I show you? Of course. Su Yu's eyes were filled with anticipation. The Mermaid Emperor took the world annihilation plate, but did not immediately enlarge it or activate the world annihilation cannon. Instead, he held it tightly in his palm, and then stared at the mysterious crystal mountains that covered hundreds of millions of miles in the distance. The corners of his mouth curled into a nostalgic smile as he said, Watch carefully. As he weaved a seal with one hand, the world annihilation plate seemed to come to life, spinning rapidly in his palm. Then, he raised his hand and threw the world annihilation plate out, spinning rapidly, heading straight for the mysterious crystal mountains. Bang! With a loud roar, the rapidly spinning world annihilation plate cut through the space cracks that were as black as hair. The huge mysterious crystal mountains were easily cut open. However, this was just the beginning. The world annihilation plate entered the mysterious crystal mountains, and its speed did not slow down. Instead, it sped up, getting faster and faster. Its edge was no longer the space cracks, but the law of space. Endless law descended around the world annihilation plate, following the world annihilation plate. At an increasingly fast speed, it cut through the mysterious crystal mountains, sucking them into the space and crushing them into pieces. After half a cup of tea's time, the world annihilation plate flew back on its own, gradually stopped spinning, and fell back into the palm of the Mermaid Emperor. Meanwhile, the mysterious crystal mountains had undergone earth-shattering changes in just half a cup of tea's time. The entire mysterious crystal mountains, from the mountainside up, were smashed into pieces, leaving only a bare section. The shocking scene stretched for hundreds of millions of miles. The Mermaid Emperor showed a look of approval. Although it is an imitation, the materials and tools used are superior. It is much better than the world annihilation plate that the 4 great empires jointly imitated. As he spoke, he threw the world annihilation plate back. The edge of the world annihilation plate was still burning hot, but it was not damaged. Su Yu's heart trembled. Was this the real way to use the world annihilation plate? Wasn't this power a little too powerful? It was more than 100 times more powerful than the power of 100 world annihilation cannons. If he had mastered its use earlier, he would not have had to fight the giant of the bitter sea. How is it? Can you trust me now? The Mermaid Emperor smiled lightly. There was no doubt about his identity. Why did you choose to cooperate with me? Su Yu's eyes flickered slightly. The Mermaid Emperor's eyes shone with disdain, as if he was the most powerful emperor in the world. He said, I have observed that in the God realm and outside of the Lost Nation, everyone is incompetent and not capable of taking on great responsibilities. Among the 4 great empires, Taichin Yunluan is, after all, a woman. She is indecisive and will not achieve great things. Binghua Songxing is bold but not astute, headstrong and self-opinionated. She cannot be trusted. Yongye Jiuyang is brave and astute, but he is helpless. He is like a puppet and cannot be trusted. Nitian Guyun is powerful and farsighted, but he is arrogant. He will die sooner or later. The Moonwatch sect leader of the Lost Nation keeps a low profile, but he is pedantic and follows the old ways. He is too narrow-minded and will not achieve great things. The 5 strongest existences in the Lost Nation were worthless in the eyes of the Mermaid Emperor. Only you, Su Yu, I have observed you for a long time. The Mermaid Emperor stared at Su Yu, and his eyes shone brightly. In terms of strength, you may not be the strongest, but you can defeat those stronger than you. You are good at using tricks and can often turn disadvantages into advantages. Since you came to the Lost God realm, what you have done along the way can be regarded as a miracle. Even when I was alive, I had never seen a genius like you. I deeply believe that if I cooperate with you, I will be able to make a name for myself in the great beginning realm, let alone take over the God realm. Su Yu listened and said with a poker face, You are flattering me. However, you seem to have missed one person. The Mermaid Emperor smiled lightly and said, You mean Nitian Hanxing? Exactly. If the information I received is correct, he suppressed the 3 of you with half of his strength. Such strength is far beyond his father's, and in terms of strategy, Nitian Hanxing is not inferior to him, Su Yu said. The Mermaid Emperor said very calmly, Haha, he is indeed excellent. In the year and a half that you were missing, he was actually the target I wanted to look for to cooperate with, but since you are back, there is no need to contact him anymore. He continued, Nitian Hanxing's strength and strategy, in general, are on par with you, but this person, the Mermaid Emperor frowned slightly. If I am not wrong, I am afraid he is going to become an inverse demon. Inverse demon? Su Yu was slightly stunned. The Mermaid Emperor said, Back then, the heaven-defying being's inverse will was too strong, beyond his tolerance limit. As a result, he became a demon. Even if someone blocked his sight, he would be brutally killed. Or if someone looked at him, it would also trigger his inverse will and obliterate the other party. In the end, it developed to the point where he would kill anyone he saw and destroy any cavern world he saw. Anything that stood in his way would be destroyed. Later, it was the other 8 emperors who joined forces to suppress him under the ancient black ice. After 10,000 years of precipitation, he was able to control the overly powerful inverse will and awaken. The Mermaid Emperor was a little worried. Nitian Hanxing has a great inverse will, but he does not have a solid foundation. Coupled with his strong hostility, I think the possibility of him becoming a demon is very high. Now that the emperors have been destroyed, once he becomes an inverse demon, no one can stop him. I am afraid that the harm he will cause will be no less than that of the sinful lady and the demonic dragon. Su Yu heard this and frowned slightly. Was the inverse demon that terrifying? Comparable to the sinful lady? Would then, if I kill him in advance, won't everything end? Su Yu said. The Mermaid Emperor shook his head resolutely. Never. He is already on the verge of becoming a demon. If you fail to kill him, his inverse will definitely multiply, and he will definitely become a demon. Su Yu frowned. What a trouble! If you meet him, try not to fight him, and do not go against his will, otherwise. The Mermaid Emperor paused. He clearly remembered that when he met Nitian Hanxing last time, his biggest obsession was to kill Suyu. If they met, even if Suyu did not die in his hands, he would still be a hindrance to Nitian Hanxing. With hindrance, the inverse will would definitely become stronger. However, was Suyu going to stand still and be killed by him? It's better if you don't meet each other, the Mermaid Emperor said helplessly. After that, he said seriously, in short, you are the best candidate for cooperation. I have the sinful lady's weakness, and you have the unparalleled strategy. If you and I work together, we will be able to kill her before she breaks the seal. Suyu's eyes flashed deeply, and after thinking for a long time, he said, Okay. We can cooperate. The Mermaid Emperor laughed. Finally, there is a kindred spirit. As he said that, the Mermaid Emperor took out a spell and handed it to Suyu. As a sign of sincerity, this is the method to control the world annihilation plate. I believe it will make you stronger. Suyu's heart was moved, and he was very grateful. Thank you, Mermaid Emperor. I wonder what is the weakness that the Mermaid Emperor mentioned, and do you have a corresponding plan? Suyu asked. The Mermaid Emperor twirled his beard, and his eyes shone brightly. No matter how strong a creature is, there is a weakness, and the sinful lady is no exception. When the 9 emperors joined forces to suppress her, they found something very strange. She was not a complete person. Suyu's eyes were thoughtful. Not a complete person? What do you mean? I mean, the Mermaid Emperor said slowly, she is just a soul, without a physical body. Hearing this, Suyu took a deep breath. She was just a soul, and she had the power to kill the 9 emperors? So, killing her has infinite possibilities. The Mermaid Emperor said deeply, if we had known that she was a soul, maybe the 9 emperors would not have ended up so miserably. Chapter 1535. Soul Body. Suyu couldn't help but think of Yunyazi. They were both incredibly powerful soul bodies and equally mysterious and unfathomable. However, Suyu had been in contact with Yunyazi for a long time. He shook his head and said, at her level, it doesn't matter whether she has a physical body or not. In terms of the strength of her soul alone, she surpasses the divine warriors of heaven and earth. Unless you have a special way to target the soul, this is not a weakness. The Mermaid Emperor showed a look of approval. Haha, it is reassuring to work with you. If others knew that she was a soul body, I am afraid they would immediately be blindly optimistic. Yes, the strength of her soul wasn't something that could be shaken by the sovereigns of heaven and earth. Unfortunately, there was once an abnormally powerful civilization weapon that was created in the divine territory. It was a pity that the sinful woman and the demonic dragon descended before it could be completed. Suyu's heart skipped a beat. Do you have the blueprint? Swish. The Mermaid Emperor threw out a blueprint that he had drawn himself. It was a rather tall humanoid puppet, covered with strange Sanskrit characters. Seeing this picture, Suyu's pupils shrank slightly. Wasn't this the Brahma puppet that was being built in the World Annihilation Plate? He returned the blueprint calmly and said, it looks like it is not very powerful. It is only at the level of a level 2 deity. Ha ha ha! The Mermaid Emperor laughed. Since I dare to call it a top civilization weapon, how can it only be at the level of a level 2 deity? It looks like an ordinary puppet, but the Sanskrit characters on its body can absorb divine blood. The more it absorbs, the stronger it becomes. Suyu's brows twitched secretly. There was such an ability? My idea is to absorb the blood of all living beings in the world and make the Brahma puppet reach the level of a path master. Then, it will deal a devastating blow to the soul of the sinful girl. The Mermaid Emperor said slowly, this is why I want to unify the world. Without absolute imperial power, it is as difficult as ascending to heaven to force everyone to donate part of their blood. It could reach the level of a path master? Su Yu's pupils shrank and he secretly took a few breaths. In that case, the Brahma puppet that he was building could also be suppressing the excitement in his heart. Su Yu acted as if nothing had happened and said, "So, your plan is to unify the world first?" "Yes. And the time is too short, less than half a year." The Mermaid Emperor's eyes darkened slightly and he said, "I hope you can help me. This is the only way to destroy the sinful girl. Otherwise, any attempt is futile." After pondering for a long time, Su Yu nodded slightly. "The wizard tribe in the Lost Nation is still manageable. I'm confident that I can convince them to donate part of their essence blood. However, I'm not confident at all in the 4 great empires of the God realm." The Mermaid Emperor said, "Leave it to me. I'm going to send out an invitation to the 4 emperors to gather again and discuss together. You must be present at that time," he said meaningfully. Su Yu understood what he meant and said, "That's good. I'll go back to the Lost Nation first and discuss with the Moonwatch sect leader. There's no time to lose. Goodbye." The two of them exchanged communication artifacts, and Su Yu flew away. The Mermaid Emperor flicked his sleeves and immediately rushed back to the Empire of Darkness to issue the invitation. "Big Brother Su, the drawing seems to be the one in your warehouse." Luo Xue's eyes turned. She had also seen the drawing just now. Being extremely intelligent, she seemed to have guessed something and said, "Big Brother Su, do you not trust this reincarnated emperor of the past? Why don't you tell him that you have one too?" Su Yu's eyes gleamed with deep lust and he said, "Of course not. This person is ruthless and ruthless. Even if he is the reincarnation of the World Annihilation Emperor, we must be careful." Recalling how easily he killed General Blackfish, a subordinate who had followed him since the beginning, Luo Xue was deeply convinced. He turned hostile and killed people with a smile. It was not an exaggeration to be extremely careful when working with such a person. "You guys rest first. I'll rush to the Forbidden Land of 10,000 demons immediately and meet up with the wizard tribe," Su Yu said. Luo Xue nodded and obediently returned to the World Annihilation Plate. Next, Su Yu immediately used the yin-yang wings of Supreme Pole. The divine power that Su Yu possessed now far exceeded that of a level 3 deity and was second only to that of a level 2 deity. Using the yin-yang wings of Supreme Pole was effortless. Therefore, he teleported continuously all the way, easily covering hundreds of millions of miles of mountains and rivers. The vast lost forest spun like a phantom under Su Yu's feet. Along the way, as expected, all the land that had sunk into the sea in the past saw the light of day again. The same was true for those ancient forests. Moreover, Su Yu was a little surprised to find that the remaining seawater was receding in one direction. With a thought, Su Yu changed his direction slightly and followed the direction in which the seawater was receding to investigate. Half a day later, Su Yu stood in midair, deeply frowning as he looked down. There was an incomparably huge whirlpool beneath his feet. The seawater in all directions was pouring into the whirlpool, flowing endlessly. The Lost Nation had dried up because of the existence of this whirlpool. In other words, under the whirlpool, there should be a bottomless pit that could contain endless seawater. However, the location of the whirlpool was rather subtle. It happened to be in the center of the Blackwood Forest. More coincidentally, it was in the middle of the Forbidden Land of 10,000 demons, the Forbidden Lands of Red Dust, and the Forbidden Lands of Azura. Is it really a coincidence? Su Yu pondered. All of a sudden, Su Yu saw a faint dark reflection in the whirlpool. It looked like a round bead, but when he looked up, there was nothing in the sky. Su Yu was surprised. He fixed his eyes on the water, and the reflection became more and more familiar. After a while, Su Yu suddenly remembered what it was. Back then, Su Yu had used the sky-splitting yin-yang style to finally extract the wizard ancestor's power that had been sealed in Yongye Chushue's body for many years. Unexpectedly, the power of the wizard ancestor flew into the sky on its own. He especially remembered the excitement and loneliness of the epoch-making dragon at that time, saying that this thing was the key left by the wizard ancestor. Until now, Su Yu had not understood what the key was. However, it actually appeared in the whirlpool, right in the middle of the three forbidden land. It was incredible. The lost nation, the god realm that was broken into two, what happened? Su Yu's eyes flashed. After a pause, Su Yu continued on his way. 2 days later, Su Yu arrived at the forbidden land of 10,000 demons. To Su Yu's surprise, after 2 years, the forbidden land of 10,000 demons had re-entered a defensive posture. All the scales had shrunk and wrapped into a ball. His arrival immediately attracted the attention of the epoch-making dragon, and a small gap was opened. Su Yu quickly flashed in, and what he saw was the wizards who had suffered heavy casualties. Including the mistress of the greatest Saint Lady Temple, she was also seriously injured, and it was difficult for her to recover. The rest of the level 3 wizards who were injured were also not few. What happened? Su Yu asked immediately as he landed. The mistress of the greatest Saint Lady Temple looked up, and her eyes were filled with joy. Su Yu, you are back. When the rest of the wizards heard this, they rushed over one after another, looking both sad and happy. The mistress of the greatest Saint Lady Temple said, Su Yu, we were ambushed a few months ago. Many strong wizards died and countless were injured. Was it Nitian Hanxing? He hasn't given up yet? Su Yu frowned. Unexpectedly, the mistress of the greatest Saint Lady Temple shook her head, and there was a trace of fear on her face. It wasn't him. Huh? Su Yu was surprised. Apart from Nitian Hanxing, who else would set up an ambush for the wizard tribe? It was Yongye Chioma. A huge hole suddenly appeared in front of Su Yu, and a low voice came from it. It was him? The Yongye ancestor who cheated the epoch-making dragon's dragon pearl? Why did he attack the wizard tribe? Su Yu was puzzled. The epoch-making dragon said, because I am his target. Su Yu's eyes flickered with thought. After a while, he said, could it be that something happened while he was refining the dragon pearl, and he needed your help? The whole was silent, and in the silence there was a suppressed rage. It said in a low voice, yes, the dragon pearl has been successfully refined. Su Yu sucked in a breath of cold air. Before refining it, Yongye Chioma already had the power of a level 1 deity. If he refined the dragon pearl, then he wanted to absorb the power of the epoch-making dragon in the dragon pearl, but he didn't activate the dragon pearl seal, so he came to ask for it, the epoch-making dragon said. Su Yu chuckled. He couldn't have thought that you would hand over the dragon pearl seal for the wizard tribe, could he? The epoch-making dragon was a heartless creature by nature, and he would never sacrifice himself for someone as insignificant as the wizard tribe. Of course not, the epoch-making dragon said. His purpose in ambushing the wizard tribe was to search their memories and analyze the weakness of the dragon scale enchantment so that he could break it from the outside. Su Yu's eyes turned cold. No matter how strong a defense was, there would be a weakness, and the dragon scale enchantment was no exception. Then, who was captured? Su Yu glanced at the people of the wizard tribe. They were all silent, and their faces were full of shame. The epoch-making dragon sighed softly. The most troublesome one. Suddenly, Su Yu's heart skipped a beat. Could it be the Moonwatch sect master? If the mistress of the greatest Saint Lady Temple could escape, why was he the only one captured? The mistress of the greatest Saint Lady Temple looked ashamed. The sect master was captured to protect us. If it was him, it would be troublesome. In terms of understanding of the forbidden land of 10,000 demons, who could be more knowledgeable than the sect master, who had mastered many secrets of the wizard tribe? The wizard tribe had never stopped exploring the forbidden land of 10,000 demons. It has been 2 months. If they have really analyzed the weakness, it should be about time, right? Su Yu said. The mistress of the greatest Saint Lady Temple smiled bitterly. They have it for a long time. For the past month, they have been testing it every day, and they have almost confirmed it. The void exuded a deep sense of hostility. Come on, let that ungrateful thing come to me. I will smash him into ashes. It would be you who would be reduced to ashes, wouldn't it? One was sealed, and his cultivation was only level 2. The other had the dragon pearl, and his cultivation had reached level 1. If the heaven-defying Chiomor really broke through the dragon scale enchantment, the epic-making dragon would be the one to die. Coincidentally, as if in response to the words of the epic-making dragon, the dragon scale enchantment suddenly changed color, emitting bursts of fiery red. When the mistress of the greatest Saint Lady Temple saw this, her face overflowed with anger. It's them. They're here again. However, unlike the past, where they would leave as soon as they explored, the dragon scale enchantment continued to change. It was as if the enchantment was being burned by a ball of raging fire, turning fiery red. This is an official attack. The epic-making dragon took a deep breath and exuded a tyrannical aura. Hide in the void spaces. They are looking for me. The enemy was powerful, especially the terror of the heaven-defying Chioma. They had witnessed it with their own eyes. It was not a level that could be resisted by numbers alone. After a moment of hesitation, they reluctantly hid in the void spaces of various sizes. Only Su Yu had no intention of retreating. Su Yu, you should step back too, the epic-making dragon said as he stared at the dragon scales that were about to melt. Su Yu said, although my strength is average, I can still help you deal with it. The epic-making dragon shook his head. No. Although your strength is not bad, you are as vulnerable as a floating cloud in front of the heaven-defying Chioma. If you die here, no one will be able to avenge me. The epic-making dragon raised his head and sighed. Perhaps this is my fate. I can't wait for you to help me retrieve the dragon pearl. However, please continue to keep your promise. Slay the heaven-defying Chioma and avenge me. At the end of his speech, his tone was bleak, sorrowful, and filled with boundless sorrow. He stared at Su Yu and said with some exhaustion, "Step back, but remember to avenge me." As soon as he finished speaking, a gust of space energy swept out and sucked Su Yu into a void space. Moreover, the epic-making dragon's strength was added to it, sealing him within and preventing him from leaving. At the same time, Su Yu's scent was concealed. When he was done, the epic-making dragon roared in grief and indignation, "Heaven-defying Chioma, you little brat, get your ass in here!" Crackle. Chapter 1536. The epic-making dragon groaned in pain as his dragon scales were destroyed. However, his bloodthirsty eyes became fiercer and fiercer in the dark space. He, the epic-making dragon, a Dowlord, was bullied by a small lesser god like me. I don't know if it's sad or funny. As the old man spoke mockingly, a slovenly old man wearing linen clothes and his hair was tied up with straw slowly walked into the space. The old man had a wizened face, and his hair was burning like flames, which looked very creepy. Especially its eyes, which were pitch black in color, resembling that of a ghost. He was Yongye Chioma, an undying being who had lived for tens of millions of years. Kiddo, if my true body wasn't sealed, I wouldn't allow you to act so presumptuously. The epic-making dragon roared when he saw his mortal enemy. Yongye Chioma smiled and said, "There are no ifs in this world. The reality is, I'll take your dragon ball and kill you." After saying that, Yongye Chioma's flaming hair dashed out for hundreds of meters and wrapped around the giant space where the epic-making dragon was. The flames quickly filled the space of the hole, slowly burning and extinguishing it, revealing the true form of the epic-making dragon hidden within. It was an ugly and gigantic beast. Hee, how does the epic-making dragon fire taste? I learned it from your Dragon Ball, and it's especially effective against your dragon scales. Yongye Chioma sized up the strange beast and sneered. Swish, swish, swish. At this moment, a large group of people flew into the space outside the dragon scale. Among them were Yongye Jiyang, the former emperor who had fled, Shiman Ingwu, Dong Wangying, and the others who had followed him in the Empire of Darkness. Yongye Zhiyang looked fearful as he looked at the giant beast in front of him. He said in surprise, "Is this the epic-making dragon, the master of the forbidden land of 10,000 demons?" Yongye Qiuma chuckled and said, "What do you think? Am I ugly? I've seen his true face before, and I can't believe he's so handsome. I didn't expect that he would become so ugly after such a long time. No wonder he hid in the space and never saw the light of day. It turns out that he was too ashamed to show his face." Shameless Junior. The epic-making dragon roared in anger. It raised its giant claws and wanted to attack, but the chains on its body immediately tightened and embedded into its flesh, causing the epic-making dragon to suffer endless pain. Even so, the epic-making dragon gritted its teeth and growled, "If you hadn't taken my Dragon Ball back then, how would I be in such dire straits?" Yongye Qiuma looked at the epic-making dragon, who was unable to resist, and sneered, "Epic-making dragon, if you don't want to suffer, then hand over the Dragon Pearl incantation. To be honest, if it wasn't for the fact that refining the Dragon Pearl cannot be stopped for so many years, I would have come to destroy you long ago. A sealed being like you must be a great evil. Only by getting rid of you will the lost nation be able to enjoy peace," Eternal Knight Qiuma said. The epic-making dragon was furious. "When have I ever done anything to the lost nation? You, on the other hand, have exploited the bloodline of the descendant of the World Annihilation Emperor. Your methods are sinister and bloody. In terms of evil and evil, I am not even 1/10,000th of you." Yongye Qiuma's eyes turned cold. "Who told you that I have exploited the bloodline of the World Annihilation Emperor's descendant? Oh, it's him." He squinted his eyes and emitted a cold light. "That Su-Gai ruined my plan and caused my refining speed to be greatly hindered. I only managed to refine the Dragon Pearl after delaying it for 2 years. I will settle this score with him. Didn't he stop me from extracting the bloodline of others? Fine, I will extract his bloodline and make him pay the price he deserves." The epic-making dragon sneered. "You have committed atrocities, and you will get what you deserve sooner or later." "Humph, these words are usually uttered by the weak." Yongye Qiuma sneered. "Since you don't want to tell me, don't blame me for using force. Zhiyang, let him have a taste of the sealing chains." Yongye Qiuma grinned hideously. Yongye Zhiyang hesitated for a moment before he took out a few whip-like artifacts that he had prepared and lashed out at the chains. The chains were used to seal the epic-making dragon. They were extremely spiritual. Once they sensed that an external force was trying to break them, they would contract and punish the epic-making dragon. However, at this moment, they had become Yongye Qiuma's weapon to torture the epic-making dragon. As expected, when the long whip touched the chains contracted immediately. The epic-making dragon could not help but roar in agony. Yongye Zhiyang felt sorry for the epic-making dragon. He had no grudge against the epic-making dragon. Yongye Zhiyang could not bear to torture him like this. "Why should I stop? Continue," Yongye Qiuma said calmly. Yongye Zhiyang pondered for a moment before he said to the epic-making dragon, "Senior, please hand them over so that you won't have to suffer." Not only did the epic-making dragon give in, but he also grinned hideously. "Go ahead and beat me. It's best if you can kill me. Then I will be free." "Humph, you don't know what's good for you." Yongye Qiuma's face turned pale. He snatched a long whip from the epic-making dragon and lashed it at lightning speed. Crack! With a loud noise, the chains contracted violently. Splat! The chains tightened around the epic-making dragon's body. Under the intense pressure, the epic-making dragon was badly mutilated, and blood splattered everywhere. "Are you going to tell me or not?" Yongye Qiuma continued to swing the long whip. Every time he swung it, he would let out a blood-splattering roar. Yongye Qiuma was filled with hostility. A perverted, hideous smile appeared on his face. It was as if the epic-making dragon was screaming in agony. This made him even more excited, and he lashed out even more fiercely. Yongye Jiuyang and the others shuddered slightly. They felt uncomfortable. When they noticed Yongye Chima's expression, they felt even more uneasy. However, it was impossible for them to get rid of Yongye Chima. At this moment, the epic-making dragon was badly mutilated. Blood flowed all over his body, and the chains had already embedded themselves into his bones. He was about to be torn into pieces. Even so, the epic-making dragon was still unyielding. There was a mocking look in his eyes. You will never obtain the power of the epic-making dragon. So what if you try so hard to refine this Dragon Ball? In the end, it's still useless. It turned out that the epic-making dragon had held back. He had only taught Yongye the method to control the Dragon Ball's power. However, he had kept the core of the epic-making dragon's power. Yongye Chima's expression turned cold. A hint of anxiety appeared in his eyes. The epic-making dragon's will was stronger than he had expected. If this continued, it would be useless even if he killed him. However, apart from this, was there any other way to threaten him? At this moment, Yongye Chima suddenly realized that something was wrong. Why was there only the epic-making dragon in the barrier? He remembered that the ants of the sorcerer tribe were also hiding in this place. Yongye Chima looked around at the holes of different sizes. He suddenly put down his whip, and his lips curled into a cruel smile. He laughed hideously. Hee, someone as cold and heartless as you actually thought about protecting those lowly ants? The epic-making dragon's eyes flickered involuntarily when he heard that. Yongye Chima caught the look in the epic-making dragon's eyes. The hideous smile on his face became even wider. Hee, it seems like I've guessed correctly. There must be someone among them that you want to protect. He narrowed his eyes and gripped his whip tightly again. He said mockingly, "Let me guess. Which hole is the one you really want to protect?" Crack! He attacked without any warning. He lashed out with his whip and shattered the nearest hole. The whip was a custom-made imitation of an emperor-based saint artifact. It was extremely powerful, let alone Yongye Chima himself. The hole instantly turned into ashes. The few sorcerer tribe members hiding inside let out terrified and painful screams. They turned into ashes along with the hole. The epic-making dragon was furious. "Stop! Hee, are you afraid? I won't." Yongye Chima laughed hideously. He waved his whip again, and another hole was shattered. Several sorcerer tribe members died on the spot. The epic-making dragon widened his blood-red eyes. "Stop, you bastard!" Even Yongye Jiuyang and the others could not stand it anymore. However, they did not dare to resist Yongye Chima. "Ha ha ha ha! This is the expression I wanted to see on your face." Yongye Chima waved his whip continuously. The holes were shattered one after another. Countless sorcerer tribe members were turned into ashes amidst their screams. Yongye Chima laughed maniacally. The epic-making dragon could only struggle and roar. However, he was powerless. He could only watch as countless sorcerer tribe members were killed. At this moment, Yongye Chima's whip had already destroyed all the holes within its range. Yongye Chima smiled faintly. "You're still unwilling to tell me now. This means that I haven't harmed the person you want to protect. Then, let me guess, where exactly is he hiding?" He turned his gaze and locked onto an inconspicuous hole. It was neither too far nor too close to Yongye Chima. Its size was neither too big nor too small. It was like a grain of sand in an ocean of sand. However, Yongye Chima's intuition told him that inconspicuous grain of sand. He said leisurely, "This hole seems a little special. My intuition tells me that the person hiding inside is not ordinary." The epic-making dragon's pupils shrank. He said in a deep voice, "Stop. That's enough. I can tell you the dragon pearl seal art that you want." In the end, he chose to give up. The person hiding inside the hole was Su Yu. Yongye Chima's lips curled into a cold smile. Unfortunately, I am more interested in him than the Dragon Pearl Seal art. A living being that requires the protection of an epic-making dragon. What could it be? No. The epic-making dragon roared. However, Yongye Chuma had already shattered the whole. However, he still had some strength left in his hand. He only shattered the outer layer of the space, so that the living being inside would not be harmed. As expected, the space shattered, revealing a complete humanoid living being. However, when Yongye Chuma saw who it was, he was stunned at first. He then sneered and laughed loudly. So it's the young fellow with the surname Su. I was just fretting about not being able to find him, and you actually hid him here. You can wear out iron shoes in fruitless searching, only to find him by chance. Epic-making dragon, I really have to thank you. The epic-making dragon stared at Yongye Chuma furiously. His eyes were filled with despair. In the end, he was still discovered. No one could avenge him. However, at that moment, Suyu stood with his hands clasped behind his back amidst the shattered pieces of space. His expression was calm as he said slowly, I have to thank you too. Thank you for letting me out. Otherwise, it would have taken me a lot of effort to break open the hole from the inside. Chapter 1537. The hollow space came from the scales of the epic-making dragon. It was easy to break it from the outside, but it was quite difficult to destroy it from the inside. Suyu spent a great deal of effort in the space, but he still couldn't shake the hollow space. He saw what was happening in the outside world, but failed no matter how hard he tried. Luckily, Yongye Chuma destroyed the hollow space in time. Oh? Thank me? Heh, heh, heh. You should thank me because I will make you wish you were dead. Yongye Chuma said with a hideous smile. Jiuyang, capture him. Yongye Jiuyang hesitated for a while, but didn't hesitate for too long. Yongye Jiuyang teleported over. His figure in the royal robe was like a phantom shadow. Then, 18 palm prints appeared around Suyu. Every single one of them was a real palm print, not an illusion. Palm of Eternal Night. This palm print was inherited by the royal family of Eternal Night. It was extremely powerful, and each palm print was stronger than the previous one. The palm prints overlapped each other continuously. Few people at the same level as Suyu could survive this palm print. Suyu was not afraid, and his body was filled with boundless fighting will. He was like a giant who was ready to fight against the heavens and the earth. Boundless fighting will. Suyu shouted in a low voice. After 5 years of preparation, his boundless fighting will had reached the upper realm. As soon as he used it, tens of thousands of divine weapons appeared behind him. Each of these divine weapons was formed by his body when he reached the lower realm. However, this time there were tens of thousands of divine weapons. The tens of thousands of divine weapons dashed up to the sky and formed a dark cloud which swept across the surroundings. The 18 palm prints were confronting each other in the sky. Although the palm prints were powerful, half of the dark cloud of divine weapons were destroyed and turned into dust. However, although their bodies were destroyed, their fighting will was not extinguished. Soon, more powerful divine weapons were formed again from the dust. When the second palm print arrived, they were also destroyed. However, they were formed again with more powerful fighting will. Again and again, when the 18th palm print arrived, the fighting will of the tens of thousands of divine weapons was so powerful that it could destroy the world. The most powerful palm print was destroyed easily by the tens of thousands of divine weapons, as if it was made of mud. The divine weapons didn't lose their momentum. Instead, they destroyed Yongye Jiuyang with their fighting will. Yongye Jiuyang was shocked. He didn't expect Suyu could cultivate the boundless fighting will of the heaven-fighting divine warrior to such a high level. No wonder people said that Nitiangyun was killed by Suyu. It seemed that all these rumors were not groundless. Brat, you're underestimating the imperial family's inheritance. Yongye Jiuyang shouted in a deep voice. 9 fist-sized glowing balls that looked like 9 small suns emerged from his body. 9 suns burn the heavens. This technique was one of the two most powerful inheritances of the Evernight royal family, second only to the 6 laws of mind control. Only the heirs of the Empire of Darkness were qualified to cultivate it. However, Yongye Zhiyang was the one who had mastered this art the most. Except for his ancestor, the Yongye king, no one could compare with him. This was also the origin of his name, Yongye Zhiyang. As the 9 small suns revolved around Su Yu suddenly felt the temperature around him rise. Invisible flames that could be seen with the naked eye were rising and burning him. A faintly discernible shadow of a law vaguely appeared. The flames that triggered the descent of the chains of law? Su Yu smiled. With a flip of his palm, a golden bell appeared in his palm. As Su Yu threw it forward, the golden bell expanded to 100,000 feet in size. It fell from the sky and suppressed the 9 small suns. With a loud bang, the 9 small suns were trapped inside. The flames it emitted were all suppressed, and the surrounding temperature quickly dropped. Yongye Zhiyang's pupils contracted. The Tai East Emperor Bell? Where did you get it? As the monarch of the empire, even he did not have such a powerful emperor-based saint weapon. Su Yu stared at him with a faint smile. Do you really want to know, or are you trying to buy time so that you can use the 6 fundamental laws of mind control? Yongye Zhiyang's eyebrows twitched. His hands, which were hidden behind his back, were quickly making hand signs. Upon hearing that, he immediately activated the strongest technique of the Empire of Darkness, the 6 laws of mind control. He clenched his fist, and the Tai East Emperor Bell trembled uncontrollably as if it were flying toward Yongye Zhiyang. This was the most feared inherited skill of the Empire of Darkness, the 6 laws of mind control. However, it was rumored that Yongye Zhiyang had never practiced this technique. Even when Yongye Zhiyang fought against Nitian for the remains of the Ice and Fire Divine Warrior, he did not use it. But now, not only was he able to execute it, his strength was also extremely strong, reaching the level of middle part initial mastery. Apparently, Yongye Zhiyang had practiced this technique for many years. However, Yongye Zhiyang had been pretending to be weak all this time and didn't want anyone to know that he had practiced this technique. The depth of his forbearance could be seen from this. Are you surprised? Yongye Zhiyang said with a confident smile. I planned to give Nitian Guyun a surprise by stealing the sacred sky warship that he was crafting. I didn't expect he would leave before the final battle with me. What was even more unexpected was that I would be getting the 23rd ranked Tai East Emperor Bell. This is beyond my expectation, Yongye Zhiyang said delightedly. All of a sudden, Yongye Zhiyang changed his expression and clenched his fist again. This was because his Tai Eastern Emperor Bell had actually stopped trembling, as if it was being controlled by another force. After several attempts, Yongye Zhiyang found the 6 laws of mind control couldn't harm the Tai East Emperor Bell at all. Then, he stared at Su Yu's hands behind his back and said in surprise, Su Yu looked calm. Then, he showed his hands which were making hand signs to perform the 6 laws of mind control. Then, the Tai East Emperor Bell flew back to Su Yu's hand. As I expected. Yongye Zhiyang couldn't believe his eyes. I didn't expect you would reach the upper class of the middle part. Who gave you the middle part? He had only given Su Yu the contents of the first part. Suddenly, Yongye Zhiyang thought of something. Then, his face darkened. Was it the 2 unfilial sons and daughters? Su Yu said calmly. They just didn't want to be your accomplices. After saying that, Su Yu's eyes turned cold. Then, he took out a chain and slashed it at the void behind him. Clang! With the sound of metal clashing, a figure holding a khaki-colored longsword fell out of the void, caught off guard. His figure was a little embarrassed. What a sharp sense! The figure was a little surprised. Yongye Zhiyang looked at him and said, Father, why did you attack him? It was a fight between him and Su Yu. As a senior, Yongye Zhiyang attacked him sneakily from behind and was exposed. Yongye Zhiyang scolded coldly, You piece of trash? Step back. You are weaker than a young man. In fact, Yongye Chuma was more surprised than Suyu. He had been paying attention to Suyu from the very beginning. Over the past 7 or 8 years, Suyu's cultivation had improved tremendously. Now that he had returned after missing for 2 years, he had acquired many magical powers and heavenly treasures. Yongye Jiang stepped back in embarrassment. He looked at Suyu with a complicated expression in his eyes. Young man, I admit that I have underestimated you. I didn't expect you could defeat a level 2 deity. You have improved so fast that even I am impressed. Yongye Chuma said in a hoarse voice. He squinted his eyes and said with a faint smile, if you were given more time, I believe you could surpass level 2 and reach my current level. It's a pity that you won't have the chance. Yellow Heaven Sword. Yongye Chuma swung the long yellow sword at Suyu. Suyu was shocked. He didn't dare to underestimate the swordsmanship of a level 1 deity. While protecting himself with the chain, Suyu took out the Tai East Emperor bell again. A series of sparks appeared on the chain. Then, it was swept away by the mighty power of the long sword. The sword was unstoppable and hit the Tai East Emperor bell directly. Ripples appeared on the surface of the Tai East Emperor bell. It was almost pierced through. Suyu was shocked. Even the giant of the Bitter Sea couldn't reach this level. They were both level 1 deities, but Nitian Chuma was much more powerful. Do you think you will be safe if you hide behind the Emperor-based Saint artifact? Nitian Chuma sneered. Suyu was alarmed. Without saying a word, a gigantic Tai Chi pattern appeared under his feet. Almost at this moment, the long sword in Nitian Chuma's hand changed into a crystal ball. It contained an intense aura of the Dragon Clan. It contained an extremely horrifying dragon power. Suyu's heart skipped a beat when he sensed the power. Needless to say, Suyu could guess what it was. It was the Dragon Ball of the epic-making dragon power. With the Dragon Ball in his hand, Nitian Chuma's body changed subtly. 2 pitch-black dragon horns grew on his head. Silver scales appeared all over his body. His pupils were yellowish, which was unique to the Dragon Clan. The hand that held the Dragon Ball had the most unique change. It was almost the same as the giant claw of the epic-making dragon. It was huge, sharp, and contained powerful dragon power. Seeing this, the epic-making dragon was furious and shocked. Suyu, be careful. He has refined the Dragon Ball and can mobilize 1/10,000th of the dragon power in the Dragon Ball. He did not continue, but Suyu could imagine how terrifying 1/10,000th of the dragon power of the epic-making dragon was at its peak would be. This palm strike could at least reach the level of a Star River Overlord. A mere Emperor-based Saint artifact ranked 23rd couldn't possibly block it. At this critical moment, Suyu spread his fingers. Cosmos Sword Formation. Swoosh. Swoosh. Suddenly, a silver light flashed behind him, and 9 straight, sharp, silver-black feathers appeared. However, upon closer inspection, they were not feathers at all. They were 9 long swords that were stuck upside down on Suyu's back. They looked like feathers. The 9 feathers immediately shot up into the sky and spun rapidly around Suyu. Because of the rapid rotation, the shadows left by the 9 swords connected into a line, forming a clear arc around Suyu. The arc circled around Suyu as if some strange object had been attached to him. A wave of shocking sword energy rippled out slowly. It was like a mighty force that could split the heavens and the earth, filled with a terrifying will that could destroy the wilderness and shatter the chaos. The expression of Yongye Chuma, who was about to strike, changed completely. He had experienced this feeling not long ago when he was refining the Dragon Ball. At that time, he was very far away, and the feeling was very vague. However, he was sure that it was the inherited sword technique of the Demon Sword Divine Warrior, the Cosmos Sword Formation. The fear and trepidation he experienced at that time almost caused his refinement to be interrupted still lingered in his heart. He had been guessing that the descendant of the demon sword divine warrior had been born. However, he had never expected that the so-called descendant of the demon sword divine warrior was none other than Suyu, whom he was about to deal with. A fear that came from the depths of his soul caused Yongye Chioma's entire body to tremble. As he stared at the dark silver arc, Yongye Chioma felt like he was about to be destroyed. His heart thumped wildly. Swish! After a brief moment of consideration, Yongye Chioma chose to flee without hesitation. A level 1 deity could travel hundreds of millions of miles with a single thought. However, he did not expect Su Yu's figure to follow him like a shadow, still above his head. Chapter 1538. Su Yu put his palms together and said calmly, "When the epic-making dragon begged you to stop, did you show any mercy? If so, what makes you think you are qualified to beg for mercy?" After saying that, Su Yu rotated his fingers. The silvery black arc flickered violently. The destructive power was about to explode. Yongye Chioma was running away in fear. However, Su Yu was still standing on his head like a ghost. At this moment, the Cosmos Sword formation was activated. The silvery black arc was like the first ray of light in this dark and chaotic world. It separated the sky from the earth, cut off the night from the day, and isolated the yin from the yang. Everything was wiped out by the silvery light. The entire lost nation could clearly feel a mighty force that could split the heavens and earth apart, traversing the space-time of the lost nation. They also sensed that a silver light had swept across the entire lost nation. There was no destruction or screams, because even the sound had been destroyed. The aura of Yongye Chioma had been erased from this world. Only endless ruins were left. 1/10 of the Blackwood Forest had been razed to the ground. Within a radius of 10 trillion kilometers, not even a blade of grass could be seen. When the silvery light disappeared, the world became peaceful again. To be exact, it was dead silent. The 9 swords returned to Su Yu's back like feathers. Su Yu looked very tired. His divine strength, physical strength, and soul strength had almost been used up. Su Yu flew down slowly and sat on the ground with his legs crossed to recover. However, it was too late. Along with several air-rending noises, Yongye Jiuyang led a group of people to approach Su Yu cautiously. Sensing the terrifying power lingering in the air, and gazing at the endless destruction, they could only feel their hearts beating wildly. When they sensed Su Yu's existence, they sensed Su Yu's weakness. However, they didn't dare to approach him. After a long time, Yongye Jiuyang gritted his teeth and flew down. When he saw the 9 swords on Su Yu's back, his eyelids couldn't help but twitch. Shangguan Feiyu, Dong Wangying, and Shimen Ingwu flew down one after another. Then, they surrounded Su Yu and trapped him in the center. Shimen Ingwu's eyes were filled with jealousy. In the past, they had stood at the same starting line, but 10 years had passed. Although she had made rapid progress, compared to Su Yu, her so-called progress was negligible. Seeing that Su Yu was like an arrow at the end of its flight, she could not help but have evil thoughts. She stared at him and said, "King, he seems to be unable to move." Dong Wangying's eyes gleamed with a cold divine light. "That Tai Eastern Emperor Bell is an Emperor Path saint weapon of our ancestor, the Eastern Emperor Tai. Is Sovereign King willing to seek justice for our Eastern royal clan and retrieve that lost inheritance treasure? When a wall is down, everyone will give it a shove. Especially after the existence that they used to look up to in the past had collapsed, they even had the thought of stepping on it. It was to the extent that he even wanted to lay his hands on the magical treasure that Su Yu always carried with him." Shangguan Feiyu's eyes were filled with pity. He and Su Yu were somewhat related, but the King of Eternal Darkness would not let Su Yu off. Whether it was the debt of the past or the hatred of today, everyone fixed their eyes on Yongye Jiuyang. Even though Su Yu was seriously injured, only Yongye Jiuyang was confident that he could kill him. Yongye Jiuyang's eyes changed several times. Finally, he made up his mind. Then, he stepped forward. His divine strength gushed out and swept towards Su Yu. Shimin Ingwu was a bit excited. Shangguan Feiyu sighed silently and closed his eyes to feel sorry for Su Yu. A sovereign like Su Yu was killed just like that. The epic-making dragon, who was far away, sensed Su Yu's attack and roared angrily. The dragon roar echoed for a long time. However, it could not stop Yongye Zhuyang's attack. Nobody could save Su Yu. However, unexpectedly, the divine strength that was sweeping towards Su Yu slowed down suddenly. Then, it turned into a strand of pure divine strength and gushed into Su Yu's body to speed up his recovery. Shangguan Feiyu was stunned. Then, he looked at Yongye Zhuyang in surprise. Shimin Ingwu and Dong Wangying were also stunned. Shimin Ingwu said in surprise, "Sovereign King, what happened?" Yongye Zhuyang stood there with his hands clasped behind his back. Then, he asked as he stared at Su Yu, "How are Chushu and Wuheng?" Su Yu looked at him calmly and said, "They will surpass you soon." Hearing this, Yongye Zhuyang felt relieved as he stroked his beard and said with a smile, "Good, good. I have so many sons and daughters. However, they are the most outstanding ones. That's good." Although he was smiling, Yongye Zhuyang could see his loneliness. His two most outstanding children, however, were running in the opposite direction from him, as though they were strangers. Tell them that when they get married and start their own businesses, don't follow their father's example. Don't destroy their families and their country. Yongye Zhuyang said as he flew up into the sky. Shangguan Feiyu was surprised for a long time. Then, he smiled and followed Yongye Zhuyang. Shimin Ingwu was unwilling to give up. After catching up with Yongye Zhuyang, she said, "Sovereign King, why don't you take this opportunity to kill him? He is a wanted criminal of the four empires. Also, he killed the old great emperor of Yongyechuma. If you let him go, will you let him go?" Dong Wangying's eyes flickered as he said, "He stole the secret inheritance of the Yongye royal family and the great treasure of our Eastern royal family. How can we let him go?" Hearing they were dissatisfied, Yongye Zhuyang turned around and said calmly, "Enemy? Who is our enemy?" "It is the prophecy about the catastrophe that has been passed down from generation to generation. The world will collapse, the evil woman will be born, the world will be in chaos, and the common people will cry. I know the old great emperor is not a good person. However, I still follow him. Why? Because he is the most powerful being in the God realm. He is the only one who can defeat the prophecy." Yongye Zhuyang said, "Now, there is someone who is much more powerful than the old great emperor. If we kill him while he is seriously injured, we will be putting the cart before the horse." Shimin Ingwu had always been arrogant. If Yongye Wuheng was killed, she could tolerate him because he always stood above her. However, Su Yu, who came later than her, was not someone she could tolerate. Dong Wangying continued, "What about the lost emperor-based saint artifact of our Eastern royal family? Are we going to let an outsider take control of it?" Yongye Zhuyang looked at him and said, "This artifact has been lost for billions of years. I don't know how many people have owned it. The Eastern royal family is just one of them. How could the Eastern royal family have an emperor-based saint artifact? As far as I know, the Tai Eastern royal bell was stolen by your ancestors from other creatures, right?" After a long silence, Dong Wangying nodded his head and said, "Your Majesty, you are right." Yongye Zhuyang said, "If you don't mind, let's go back to the Empire of Darkness. The old great emperor left something behind, which will help us to defeat the prophecy." The others nodded their heads and started to leave. However, not long after they left, Shimin Ingwu and Dong Wangying found an excuse to leave the team and never came back. Shangguan Feiyu said, "Your Majesty, why didn't you stop them? You knew they were going to harm Su Yu." He was quite curious why Yongye Zhuyang agreed to leave the team when the two of them asked the emperor for permission. Even Shangguan Feiyu could tell the two of them were still thinking about Su Yu, who was seriously injured. Yongye Zhuyang sighed slightly. "If they want to die, let them be. I have done my best." Your Majesty, do you mean? Shangguan Feiyu raised his eyebrows and asked in surprise, Su Yu is still able to fight? Yongye Zhiyang said seriously, he is more than able to fight. Even if he wanted to kill me, it would be as easy as blowing off dust. I should be thankful that he didn't kill us and let us live. What? Shangguan Feiyu was shocked. How could Su Yu still have the power to kill a level 2 deity when he was seriously injured? If Yongye Zhiyang didn't say this, he wouldn't believe it. The look in Yongye Zhiyang's eyes deepened. Otherwise, why do you think I changed my attack to help him recover? Because I sensed a destructive force which was almost as powerful as the Cosmos Sword formation was brewing. I am afraid I will be killed before I can hurt him. Shangguan Feiyu understood why Yongye Zhiyang changed his mind. It turned out Yongye Zhiyang changed his attitude because he sensed Su Yu was in danger. After a pause, Shangguan Feiyu said hesitantly, Your Majesty, what you said about Princess Chuxue and Prince Wuheng is also, Su Yu was a loyal person, so it was not a secret. Yongye Zhiyang's words were exactly what he wanted to hear. After a while, Yongye Zhiyang said, half true, half false. Shangguan Feiyu said after a pause, then, we don't have to wait for them to come back. I don't think they will come back. Let's go. Yongye Zhiyang nodded his head. Then, he flew away with the others. At this critical moment, Su Yu glanced at the direction where Yongye Zhiyang left. Then, he took back the replica world annihilation plate in his sleeve. If Yongye Zhiyang didn't know what was good for him, Su Yu wouldn't mind killing him. Su Yu calmed down and started to cultivate. Then, he thought to himself, the Cosmos Sword formation is indeed powerful. However, it consumes a lot of energy every time I use it. I'd better not use it until the last moment. However, it was worth it to kill Yongye Zhiyang. Su Yu was shocked when he thought of Yongye Zhiyang's half-dragon form. If it weren't for the Cosmos Sword formation, the consequences would be unimaginable. At this moment, a figure dashed over. It was Shimin Ingwu who had come back. She saw Su Yu was still sitting with his legs crossed. She didn't show up until now. Swish! With a burst of sharp sword energy, Shimin Ingwu landed 1,000 feet away from Su Yu. Holding the long sword in her right hand, she looked at Su Yu up and down. Then, she said with an elegant smile, Hee, Su Yu, you are the commander of the Lost Nation. Now, you can kill a level 1 deity with a single sword attack. I didn't expect the talented young man I met in the Empire of Darkness would become so powerful that I have to look up to him. Su Yu looked at her calmly. Did you come back just to catch up? As far as I remember, we didn't know each other very well. They didn't even say a word to each other. Catch up? Of course not. I want to make a deal with you. Shimin Ingwu said with a faint smile. Su Yu shook his head. I don't think I need to make a deal with you. You need it. Shimin Ingwu smiled coldly. I will spare your life in exchange for your lifetime's training resources, insights, techniques, and everything else. What jealousy! What envy! After all, it was just Shimin Ingwu's excuse. There was only one real reason for her to come back, and that was the secret of Su Yu's rapid rise. Su Yu stared at her and said calmly, If I were you, I would leave immediately. Shimin Ingwu said confidently, Don't put on an act. If you really had the power to resist, you wouldn't have wasted your breath on a nobody like me, right? Su Yu's eyes were cold as he shook his head. Shimin Ingwu swept her long sword across, her beautiful eyes cold. I think you need to be like the epic-making dragon. You have to endure the torture of death before you are willing to speak. Chapter 1539. After he finished speaking, he abruptly thrust his longsword toward the 9-jade spiritual pearl. His eyes were filled with madness and morbidity similar to Yongye Zhiyang's. I'll kill a living being in a cave abode first. Let's see if you'll talk or not. Su Yu slowly closed his eyes and let out a soft sigh. The replica of the world annihilation plate, which he had already put away, fell down silently. When it was enlarged in the air, it covered the sky and covered the sun. It was a magnificent sight. Then, a world devastator cannon swept across with a blinding beam of light. With a soft clang, a broken sword lay alone on the ground. The owner of the broken sword was nowhere to be found, and even his aura had disappeared from the world. At that moment, Suyu muttered to himself, "I'm willing to waste my breath on you not because I have a guilty conscience, but because I don't want another profit-driven person to die in my hands." Then, Suyu looked at the horizon and said indifferently, "Who allowed you to leave? Come here." At the foot of the mountain range on the horizon, a young man who had burrowed into the ground emerged, drenched in cold sweat. He flew towards Suyu with a face full of apprehension and fear. Suyu sized him up and said coldly, "You're really cunning. You let Shimin Ingwu test the waters, while you waited for an opportunity to strike from behind." Dong Wangying's entire body stiffened as his countenance turned black. Despair filled his heart as his lips trembled. I didn't," waving his hand. Suyu was too lazy to argue with such a small fry. "Let me ask you, is the Moonwatch sect master still alive?" Yongye Chioma was the one who had searched his soul. Even if he didn't die, he would be in a miserable state. Dong Wangying nodded like a little chick pecking at grains. "He's alive, he's still alive. He's trapped in the cavern world of the Sand Continent." Suyu nodded. "Bring me to him, and I'll spare your life." Upon hearing this, Dong Wangying felt as though she was saved from death's door. She knelt down in gratitude. After keeping Dong Wangying, Suyu returned to the forbidden land of 10,000 demons. After Yongye Chioma's destruction, the forbidden land of 10,000 demons was in a mess. Most of the holes in the space had shattered, and many of the shaman tribe's clansmen were either dead or injured. The one who suffered the most was the epoch-making dragon. His skin was lacerated, and there was not a single part of his body that was unscathed. He lay on the ground, on the verge of death, and blood flowed endlessly. Suyu landed in front of her and sighed with emotion. He then asked, "How can I help you?" There was a seal on his body, and if Suyu tried to attack him, the seal would be activated, and he wouldn't be able to recover from it. The epoch-making dragon reluctantly opened his eyes and said, "It's fine as long as we find the Dragon Balls." "The Dragon Pearl." Suyu looked apologetic. "I'm afraid the Dragon Pearl has been destroyed in the Cosmo Sword formation just now. However," the epoch-making dragon said seriously, "even if the Demon Sword Emperor is reborn, he can't destroy the Dragon Ball." Suyu understood the underlying meaning, and his expression gradually turned grave. "The aura of the Dragon Pearl disappeared because I once taught Yongye Chioma a mystical ability that came with the Dragon Pearl, the Dragon Shedding Shell technique. In times of danger, he can instantly teleport to another safe location at the cost of serious injuries." Hearing this, Suyu's face darkened. The Dragon Pearl had disappeared, and so had the Yongye Chioma. In other words, he was not dead, but had teleported to another place with heavy injuries. "How long can you last?" Suyu's eyes were filled with killing intent as he asked. The Creator Dragon replied, "Until you return." "All right." Suyu nodded deeply, his eyes filled with determination. "I will bring back the Dragon Pearl as soon as possible." After that, Suyu recuperated on the spot. After exchanging greetings with the mistress of the greatest Saint Lady Temple and the others, he immediately set off for the Sand Continent to rescue the Moonwatch sect leader. What he did not know was that after he left, the epoch-making dragon had a cunning look in his eyes. "Haha, you've grown much faster than I imagined. It seems like there's still a chance for me to leave this place." The Sand Continent was located in a strange sand region in the Blackwood Forest. The place stretched on endlessly. In the vast Blackwood Forest, this barren sand region was rather peculiar. Under Dong Wangying's guidance, Suyu came before an extremely ordinary grain of sand. Even without Dong Wangying's introduction, Suyu could tell that this was a cavern world with a casual glance. "Wait here. If I find the Moonwatch sect leader dead, humph," Dong Wangying hurriedly said, No, he's alive and well. Suyu glared at him and entered the cavern world. After scanning this cavern world with his powerful background, Suyu was a little surprised to find that many people in this world were important civil and military officials of the former Empire of Darkness, as well as local dignitaries. Among them, Grand Tutor Yuan, a civil official, impressed Suyu the most. He did not expect Yongye Zhiyang would still keep such a useless civil official after the calamity of the Empire of Darkness. With a little curiosity, Suyu found Grand Tutor Yuan was instructing some people to tidy up all kinds of scrolls. The scrolls were tightly sealed. It seemed the contents of the scrolls were very important. The Empire of Darkness has fallen so far, but a group of fallen officials are still busy tidying up documents? Suyu vaguely felt something was wrong. However, he had no time to pay attention to it. Suyu continued to scan the scrolls. As expected, he found the aura of the Moonwatch sect leader. He was indeed alive, but his condition in the cavern world, on a dark hill, there was a group of slaves in ragged clothes with chains on their feet. They were holding special hard iron hoes and digging the hill under their feet. Suyu did not know what material the hill was made of. When the hard hoes dug into it, they could only leave a shallow mark of a few inches. At the same time, a series of sparks would appear. Among the group of beggars, there was a man with an extraordinary temperament who could not hide his miserable appearance. He was also forced to do manual labor. In addition to the chains on his feet, a soul-stabilizing wood was nailed deep into his head between his eyebrows. Suyu's expression softened a little. Then, he teleported to the front of the man. Seeing Suyu's arrival, the man with the extraordinary temperament looked as usual and did not panic at all. However, when he saw Suyu, his expression gradually changed. He said in a low voice, "Why are you here? Go quickly. It turns out that a peerless expert has been hiding in the Empire of Darkness. While he is away, you should leave immediately." Suyu said, "Rest assured, Moonwatch sect leader. He will not come back for the time being. I am here to save you." Seeing Suyu's determination, the Moonwatch sect leader asked doubtfully, "So, you have been to the forbidden land of 10,000 demons?" Suyu nodded and removed the soul-stabilizing wood from between his eyebrows. Without it, the sorcery energy in the Moonwatch sect leader's body started flowing again. The Moonwatch sect leader was delighted. He cupped his fists and said, "Thank you very much. This is a seal set by Yongye Zhiyang himself. I can't remove it by myself. I need external help." Suyu said, "Let's not talk about this. Let's leave first." "Wait," the Moonwatch sect leader said. Suyu was puzzled. "Sect leader, do you still have something to do?" The Moonwatch sect leader shook his head and said, "No. After I was captured, I found out that something very special was going on in this cavern world." Suyu was surprised. Anything that could make the Moonwatch sect leader feel special was definitely not ordinary. "I found out that they seem to be digging up some ancient object." "Ancient object?" Suyu raised his eyebrows slightly. He suddenly remembered the large amount of information that Grand Tutor Yuan had ordered people to sort out. Could it be the analysis of ancient objects? Ancient object? Where? Suyu asked after thinking for a while. The Moonwatch sect leader smiled without saying a word. Suyu was stunned, but he quickly reacted. He looked at the dark hill under his feet. "Is this it?" "Yes. I don't know where Yongye Zhiyang found it, but he ordered people to dig it up day and night." Suyu tried to use the earthly dragon beast. The earthly dragon beast was best at digging into the ground. Its sharp beak was specially designed for this purpose. However, the beak of the earthly dragon beast could only drill a few inches into the dark hill. It could not go any deeper. If it forced its way down, it would only create a series of sparks. Suyu was slightly surprised, and his interest was piqued. After thinking for a while, he took out the long sword of golden flames forbidden wood that had been forged for 5,000 years. At this moment, the long sword was so sharp that even a level 2 deity would not be able to resist it. As a wizard, the Moonwatch sect leader's physical body was even more difficult to resist. He felt the danger and could not help but look surprised. "This is a very dangerous long sword." Suyu smiled. His eyes focused, and the long sword slashed down fiercely. However, it only pierced a foot into the hill, and could not go any deeper. When he pulled out the long sword of golden flames forbidden wood, he saw that the long sword was stained with a trace of colorful liquid. "What is this?" Suyu was slightly surprised. The more he looked at it, the more familiar it seemed. Suddenly, Suyu thought of something, and his pupils constricted. The Moonwatch sect leader touched it subconsciously, but was quickly stopped by Suyu. He said, "Stop, don't touch it. It is very dangerous." This colorful liquid was very similar to the blood of the ancient god Jiulong. They were both filled with great power, but the difference was that the blood of the ancient god Jiulong was colorful. Now it was purple and black divine blood. The Moonwatch sect leader stared at the liquid and said, "Do you know the origin of this thing?" Suyu did not speak. He summoned the 9 long swords of golden flames forbidden wood, and they revolved around the dark hill like a gust of wind, sweeping away the 3-inch surface of the hill. In this way, the thing inside the hill was revealed. Standing in the distance, the Moonwatch sect leader was surprised. "It is the head of a living creature?" It was a head that was dozens of feet high. It was pitch black, with 2 huge fangs at the corners of its mouth and countless small teeth. At first glance, one could tell that it was a ferocious creature. The 3-inch surface of the head was actually just dust that had adhered to it over the years. Just as I expected. Suyu's eyes were filled with excitement. "It probably confirms what I have in mind, but further verification is needed." With a roll of his big sleeves, Suyu took the head away and teleported away with the Moonwatch sect leader. 2 days later, in Xing capital, in the former mansion of the Wang clan. The underground of the mansion was a forbidden area of the Wang clan. There was a spiritual pool filled with rich heavenly fire, which could be condensed into a pool every 10 years. Last time, Suyu had the opportunity to train here and purify his soul. Now that he was back, Suyu stared at the huge rock under his feet with anticipation. As he opened his 5 fingers, the 9 swords of golden flames forbidden wood rotated and swept around, constantly cutting the huge rock under his feet. At first, the Moonwatch sect leader did not understand Suyu's intention. However, as the huge rock was constantly cut, pieces of strange bones were revealed, and he was shocked. After a full hour, all the surrounding rocks were cleaned up, revealing an object that had been embedded in the rock for countless years. It was a scarlet head. The face of this head was equally ferocious. Even though it had been dead for a long time, its ferocious aura still remained. Especially when he looked into the pair of black hollow eyes, he shuddered even more. After digging out 2 strange heads in a row, the Moonwatch sect leader was shocked. "What is going on here?" Suyu's eyes shone with a profound light. He took a deep breath and said, "I think I know what the Lost Nation is." In the morning, he was asked to go on a business trip after writing 1 chapter. He did not return until 6 o'clock in the evening. He hurriedly wrote 2 more chapters to make up for 3. Chapter 1540. The Moonwatch sect leader was stunned. The Lost Nation was the place where the wizard tribe had lived for generations. What other special significance did it have? "Let's go somewhere else." Suyu rolled up his sleeves and took the skeleton away. They came to a spacious flat ground. Staring at the scarlet skull, Suyu clearly remembered that the black invitation in his hand had emerged from the skull along with the heavenly fire. If that was the case, then inside the black skull, Suyu held a golden flames forbidden wood sword in each of his palms and cut it with his supreme sharpness. As expected, the golden flames forbidden wood sword could not do anything to the skull. Instead, the body of the sword showed signs of damage. Suyu stopped in time. After thinking about it, he touched the prayer beads on his wrist. Little Ice Fire was still asleep. It was all thanks to Little Ice Fire that the scarlet head had been broken. Since it was asleep, he could only ask for help from the troublesome little girl. Come out! Su Yu's arm flashed with green light, and a little girl in colorful clothes emerged. She was holding a piece of aged heavenly orchid silver bamboo in her hands and was chewing happily on the ground. While humming an unknown tune, her buttocks were shaking. Sensing the changes in the outside world, she raised her eyebrows and looked around. When she saw Su Yu, she jumped up as if she had seen an enemy from a lifetime ago. At the same time, she rushed over with her claws and teeth and said fiercely, "Liar! Damn liar! What happened to the 2 drops of divine blood? I was beaten until I vomited blood, and you didn't fulfill your promise." Su Yu said, "I was too busy before and had no time to leave." After saying that, he quickly shot out a jade bottle. It was so fast that before the Moonwatch sect leader could sense what it was, he was held in Little Butterfly's arms. Her little face, which had been fierce just a moment ago, was beaming with joy in the blink of an eye. She was grinning from ear to ear. The Moonwatch sect leader looked at the weird girl in surprise. For some reason, he vaguely felt that this girl gave him a very uneasy feeling. This feeling was only felt when he was facing Yongyecheoma. "Little Butterfly, I let you out. In addition to fulfilling my promise, I also gave you some delicious food." Su Yu pointed at the black head, which he was helpless against, and calmly said, "That's the compensation. I've come all the way here for you." Xiao Dai's gaze swept over, and her eyes lit up, the same aura as the liquid in the bottle. "It's just that it's much weaker. But I feel like there's something special inside." Little Butterfly's eyes lit up. She put away the jade bottle, licked her lips, and pounced on the head. 2 tender little hands hugged his head tightly, and his whole body stuck to it. At first glance, it looked like a small gecko on the wall. But it was precisely this little gecko that opened its mouth and bit down fiercely, making a cracking sound. One could see with the naked eye that the indestructible skull had a crack and a bite mark on it. The Moonwatch sect master gasped, and his whole body was covered with cold air. He cried out involuntarily, "What? What kind of creature is she?" He had experienced the toughness of the pitch-black skull. No divine weapon could break it. Even someone as powerful as Yongyecheoma had tried to penetrate the skull, but he had not succeeded. But the little girl in front of him, with her terrifying teeth, the Moonwatch sect master could not help but take a few steps back in fear. Xiao Dai scratched her head in dissatisfaction. "So hard? Humph, I want to bite through it." Munch, munch, munch. Xiao Dai continued to bite. Finally, a crisp sound like an eggshell cracking fell into Su Yu's ears. In the pitch-black skull, a hole the size of a finger had been bitten. Xiao Dai's face lit up with joy. She bit along the hole, expanding it until it was as wide as a person. "Ha ha ha, I smell something delicious." Xiao Dai wiped the sweat from her forehead and went in excitedly. Unexpectedly, when half of his body went in, his legs were grabbed by someone and slowly pulled out. Xiao Dai looked back and said unhappily, "Why are you pulling me?" Su Yu smiled warmly. "You're tired. Take a rest. Leave the hardest work to me." "I'm not tired. Let go, I smell something good." Xiao Dai was impatient. Su Yu opened the 9-jade spiritual pearl, lifted her upside down, and slowly stuffed her into it. He said warmly, "You're really tired." "I'm not tired." Xiao Dai was so angry that her eyebrows were twisted. "You're tired." "I'm not tired." "I'm tired." "No, wait, you're a liar. You lied to me to open the skull." I'm going to eat you, you damn liar." Before she could finish her words, she was thrown into the 9-jade spiritual pearl. Su Yu could vaguely hear Xiao Dai's angry curses. Wiping the fine sweat from his forehead, Su Yu explained to the Moonwatch sect master with a smile, "The child is still young and disobedient. Sect master, just take it as a joke." The Moonwatch sect master nodded dumbfounded. "Oh no, it's okay. Your child is very good. Yes, so good that she wanted to eat Su-yu. Su-yu rubbed his slightly stiff cheeks and looked at the hole in the skull. With a thought, Su-yu flew into it. It was pitch black inside. Su-yu shook the golden flames forbidden wood sword in his hand, and the golden light rose sharply, illuminating the inside of the skull. There was a pool of purple-black liquid inside, similar to the blood of the ancient god Jiulong. Su-yu was excited. There was so much divine blood, much more than what the ancient god Jiulong had left behind. However, this divine blood was far inferior to the blood of the ancient god Jiulong, so Su-yu didn't feel too much pressure. Against the purple-black water vapor, Su-yu saw a dark red box floating in the liquid. The box had been soaked in the purple-black divine blood all year round, but it didn't corrode at all. Instead, it was as bright as before. What is this? Su-yu was surprised. He waved his hand and took the dark red box. It was as light as a feather in his hand, weightless. The strangest thing was that when the dark red box was separated from the purple-black liquid, the liquid boiled and evaporated into water vapor, which was absorbed into the dark red box. In the blink of an eye, the purple-black liquid was absorbed without a trace, leaving not a single drop behind. At the same time, several lines of small words appeared on the dark red box. Only those who become a high-level god can open it. I will grant you a wish. As soon as the words appeared, Su-yu's palm, which was holding the red box, was slightly hot. Su-yu immediately let go of the red box and looked at it. There was a purple-black mark on his palm, which looked like the word demon. The Moonwatch sect master witnessed the whole process and was surprised. Could it be that only those who have this mark can break through to become a high-level god can open this red box? It had been hidden in the skull for so many years by an unknown and mysterious existence. What was sealed in the red box must be extraordinary, just like the black invitation card of the Tao Abyss. No matter what, you need to at least become an existence like the divine warriors of heaven and earth to open the red box. It is still too early now, Su-yu said. He put the red box together with the invitation card of the Tao Abyss. Then, he cleaned up the scene and put away the two skulls. Su-yu then told the Moonwatch sect master about the major disaster that was about to happen in the Lost Nation in the near future. Unexpectedly, the Moonwatch sect master already knew about it. He said, "No wonder the cenotaph of the wizard ancestor cracked without warning a few months ago. The cenotaph has existed since the birth of the wizard tribe. For countless years, it has been as stable as a rock and has never changed. Even the passage of time has not eroded it. Now that it suddenly cracked, I had a bad feeling. I didn't expect it to be the evil girl who destroyed your god realm. If this is the case, once she escapes, the Lost Nation will also be destroyed. As a creature of the Lost Nation, the wizard tribe is duty-bound," the Moonwatch sect master said. At the same time, he took out 10% of his essence blood and gave it to Su-yu. His face immediately became much paler, and he looked quite weak. "I will rush back to the wizard tribe immediately and call on the subordinates of the wizard tribe to donate their essence blood," the Moonwatch sect master said. Su-yu said gratefully, "If we can survive the catastrophe, it will be thanks to you, sect master. We are all in the same boat. Well, there is no time to lose. I will set off immediately and meet up with the 4 great empires when the time comes." After the Moonwatch sect master finished speaking, he immediately rushed to the forbidden land of 10,000 demons. Su-yu's eyes flashed and he looked in the direction of the Empire of Darkness. "I wonder how the Mermaid Emperor has arranged the gathering of the 4 great empires." With a thought, Su-yu instantly flew hundreds of millions of miles and went straight to the former Empire of Darkness. When passing by the Azura Forbidden Land, Su-yu stopped for a moment and stared at the swirling vortex in the sky. There was a knot in his heart that he couldn't let go. Xian'er accidentally obtained the legacy of the second Path Master of Azura, the Dark Phoenix Path Master, and embarked on the path of Azura. He didn't know whether this was good or bad for her. After stopping for a moment, Su Yu left with the wind. What he didn't know was that in the black wood forest below, two hidden figures finally revealed themselves at this moment. They looked in the direction where Su Yu left with extreme fear and hatred. Su Yu, I will never let you go, a beautiful, elegant woman said. Her snow-like eyes were full of hatred. Beside her was none other than the mysterious man who had followed her for the longest time, Li Fei. When the demonic dimension was breached, Li Fei pretended to be an ordinary demon and escaped. It was him who rescued Princess Yunxia the moment the huge body of the giant of the bitter sea was destroyed. Otherwise, she would have died under the Cosmos Sword formation. Then the Star River opened, revealing the passage between the two god realms, and they just entered the Lost God realm. More coincidentally, they lingered near the Azura Forbidden Land and almost bumped into Su Yu. Princess Yunxia's countless years of planning was destroyed in one day. How could she not hate him? Li Fei comforted her. You are lucky to be able to survive from this man's hands. With this man's ruthlessness, if he finds you, he will definitely kill you. The hatred on Princess Yunxia's face did not diminish. It doesn't matter if I die, but he has destroyed the hope of rescuing the Lord. The giant of the bitter sea was the hope that she had spent countless efforts on. In the end, it was completely destroyed by Su Yu's sword. Even the Azura that was revealed was swept into the space-time space and disappeared. Hearing this, Li Fei shook his head and said mysteriously, Princess, you don't have to worry too much. The Lord actually has several arrangements. The Azura messenger is only one of them. He has another arrangement, and I believe he will be able to escape. What? There is another arrangement? Princess Yunxia was surprised. What is it? Li Fei smiled bitterly. I don't know. When the God realm collided with the Lost Nation, it caused a huge shock. The Azura Forbidden Land shook, and the seal was loosened for a moment. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the Lord set up two backup plans. One of them was the Azura messenger, who knew that he was sealed by the descendants of the demon sword divine warrior. The other one is extremely mysterious, and I don't know what it is. Princess Yunxia thought hard for a moment, but she did not know. Her gloomy face gradually filled with excitement. In that case, there is hope for the Lord to escape this time. Chapter 1541. A few days later, in the capital of the Empire of Darkness. To be precise, it should be the capital of the Taichu dynasty. Since the last change of dynasties, the monarchs of the three great empires came to congratulate them, and the Taichu dynasty ushered in another unprecedented event. The heaven-defying empire, the Taiching Empire, and the Icefire Empire were invited by the Mermaid Emperor of the Taichu dynasty to come to the capital to discuss the world's major events. The three great empires brought the royal family members, the court officials, the military generals, and the strong deities in the realm to enter the Taichu dynasty. The number of people was large, and the momentum was great. It was much more enthusiastic than the last time. The mortals did not understand the significance of this discussion, and they were muddle-headed. Only the participants knew how serious the matter they were discussing this time was. If they failed, not only the empire, but the entire lost nation would be affected, and the people would be reduced to ashes. Outside the capital, on a hill, Su Yu floated down and stared at the endless stream of people entering the city. Su Yu thought to himself, the Mermaid Emperor has put in a lot of effort. I guess the news of the sinful lady's birth has been spread to all the deities, unlike in the past where only a few people knew about it. It seems that he is really diligent. If that's the case, I can't slack off either, Su Yu said to himself. After thinking about it, he activated the Dragon Abyss treasure scroll, and a mysterious halo automatically appeared all over his body, containing the shadow of the Great Path rules. This was a little trick that he had discovered over the years. It could perfectly hide his identity, and even a level 1 deity would not be able to see through the halo. He did this because he was following the advice of the Mermaid Emperor to not meet Nitian Hanshing face to face, lest he arouse his rebellious intentions and turn into a demon. Nitian Hanshing, a catastrophe is upon us. I will put up with you for now. After the matter of the sinful girl is settled, I will settle the score with you. Whether you turn into a demon or not, I will kill you all the same. Suyu murmured and flew to the gate of the capital. Just as he was about to enter the gate, a shadow suddenly jumped out from the gate. The speed was extremely fast, and the shadow of the chains of the space rules flickered and shuttled freely through the crowd. Suyu was slightly surprised. Apart from him, there was also a creature who was proficient in space and could pull out the shadow of the chains of the space rules. Although it was weak and far less clear than the shadow of the chains that Suyu pulled out, it was enough for Suyu to pay attention. Unfortunately, when the swift shadow was about to bypass Suyu, it paused for a moment. Then, Suyu felt that his sleeves were empty. The Tai East Emperor bell was gone. Steal my things. Suyu was surprised and wanted to laugh. This was the first time someone had dared to steal his things since he came to the God Realm. With a shift of thought, Suyu stood still, but his body strangely shifted backward through the space. At the same time, he moved to the side of the swift shadow and casually pinched the latter's sleeve. Jiang was taken aback. He was the first to run, but his opponent was able to keep up with him and move so precisely to his side. After all, he was currently moving at high speed. Even a level 3 deity might not be able to achieve this. Jiang shook his wrist and secretly used his divine power to block Suyu's 2 fingers. But what shocked him was that those 2 fingers also contained the power of space. No matter how he tried to resist, the 2 fingers reached into his sleeve as if they were taking something out of his pocket. Not only did they take out a palm-sized bell, but they also took out several treasures of good quality. "Don't you dare!" Jiang yelled as he reached out to grab Suyu. But he did not expect Suyu to look at him calmly. Even though he was shielding himself from the light, his gaze still emitted a soul-stirring power. Jiang trembled, unable to resist. Then, Suyu slapped his shoulder and a wave of space power entered his body, sealing his divine power and space power. Jiang revealed his true form as he fled at high speed. It was a 3-foot-tall, skinny, dwarf-like creature. The surface of his skin was covered with thin scales, which contained a weak space power. His head looked like a rat's, and his eyes were small and intelligent, constantly moving around. The most ridiculous thing was that his nose was extremely sharp, 1.5 feet long, which was half his height. Suyu had seen many such strange creatures, but this was the first time he had seen one. "What kind of creature are you?" Suyu asked. The strange creature's eyes rolled around, and a pleading look appeared on his face. "My lord, I am from the mutant rat clan. I have offended you, please let me go." Suyu shook his head with a smile. "Soul-searching is more direct." Then, he pressed his palm on the creature's head. With Suyu's current attainments in the soul path, soul-searching was a piece of cake. In an instant, Suyu had finished soul-searching. When he opened his eyes, they were filled with surprise. "So, you are the descendant of the sky-reaching overlord. No wonder you are born with space power." He was indeed a rat, but not a mutant. He was a descendant of the famous sky-reaching overlord in the God realm. The sky-reaching overlord was a spiritual creature of the world, a sky-reaching rat. The sky-reaching rat was born with space power, and could freely travel through many dangerous forbidden lands, or places that were protected by seals. But what was truly shocking was that their noses were divine objects that were unparalleled in the divine realm. Their noses had a unique ability to identify all kinds of natural treasures, magical treasures, and spiritual technique. Whenever there was a treasure, they could smell it, no matter how well it was hidden. When the sky-reaching overlord was just a weak rat, he relied on his nose to search for treasures everywhere. Then, he gradually grew into a supreme being of the Star River overlord level. The ugly creature in front of him was the descendant of the sky-reaching overlord in the past. I didn't expect his descendants to survive after the death of the overlord. Suyu sighed. He didn't want to kill him, so he said, "Your ancestor was a famous divine creature of the god realm, but his descendant became a thief." The sky-reaching rat was stunned. He was surprised that Suyu knew about the past. There was no memory of the sky-reaching overlord in his memory, so Suyu didn't search his soul. "Don't do it again. Let's go." Suyu waved his hand and removed the seal. Swoosh! Swoosh! Right at this moment, the flow within the city gate surged once again, and 3 auras that were not weak surged out. When he focused his gaze, he noticed that it was 2 young men that were immaculately dressed and a young woman that had a pair of bright eyes and a pink dress that fluttered in the wind. They were 2 well-dressed young men, and a beautiful young woman in a pink dress. Among the crowd, their eyes searched quickly and locked on to the sky-reaching rat. Seeing that, the sky-reaching rat turned pale and ran away. The young woman raised her eyebrows and scolded, "Half Moon, you thief! How dare you run away?" Tai Chi Yunyang wings. A vague Tai Chi pattern appeared above the young woman's head. The yin-yang fish's eyes split into 2 and turned into wings on her back. With a flap, the young woman's figure became blurred, and she instantly teleported near the sky-reaching rat. The sky-reaching rat's magical powers were spatial escape and treasure hunting, but his combat power was ordinary. After 2 rounds, he was captured by the young woman and pinned to the ground. Suyu looked at the young woman in front of him and was slightly surprised. Tai Chi Yunyang wings. Such a familiar name, such a familiar technique, and it was exactly the same as the yin-yang wings of Tai Chi. She must be from the Taiqing Empire, right? He looked at the other 2 young men. They were dark-skinned, arrogant, and had a rebellious aura. Needless to say, they must be from the heaven-defying empire. As for the other one, his body was surging with 2 opposite powers of ice and fire. He must be a member of the royal family of the Empire of Ice and Fire. Looking at the 3 people's angry faces, Suyu found it funny. The sky-reaching rat was really audacious. Of all people, he had to provoke the royal family of the 3 great empires. "What are you laughing at?" The young woman, who was beside him, sharply caught Suyu's strange smile and scolded him. Suyu looked at her. She was 18 years old. When Suyu came to the God Realm, she was only 10 years old, so she could be considered his junior. With a faint smile, Suyu left behind his Tai East Emperor bell and took out the rest of the items. "It just so happens that he also stole something from me. Capture him. If there is anything among these items that belongs to you, please take it." The young woman's beautiful eyes immediately fixed on an ice jade hairpin. It was not very precious, but it contained the aura of the Emperor of the Taiqing Empire. "Oh, so it's the Taiqing Cloud Luan's personal item. I'm sorry that I didn't notice it," Suyu said with a faint smile. The young woman's eyes were filled with joy, but she immediately became stern. "Calling my grandmother by her name? You're asking for a beating." She turned out to be a direct descendant of the Taiqing Cloud Luan. Suyu smiled without saying anything. In front of him, the Taiqing Cloud Luan could only be respectful. Not to mention calling her by her name, even if he reprimanded her face, she would not dare to complain. "Please return these items to your companion," Suyu said. He looked at the sky-reaching rat, who was facing imminent disaster, and said, "As for him, please spare his life on account of helping you capture him." The young woman tilted her head and looked at Suyu seriously. She said, "You're so strange. You hide your aura so well that I can't see through it." If she could see through it, it would be really strange. At that moment, her 2 companions flew over one after another and asked about the scene in front of them. The young woman explained to them, and the 2 young men nodded in agreement. Suyu was surprised. Nitian Gyun and Binghua Songxing were arrogant and unreasonable people. Their juniors were actually quite reasonable and let them go so straightforwardly. However, when he thought about it carefully, they had so many descendants. There were good people and bad people, and there was no lack of good characters. The young woman put down the sky-reaching rat and kicked him angrily. Forget it, I'll let you go. If I see you again, I'll take your life. Get lost. The sky-reaching rat survived the calamity, bowed to Suyu, and disappeared. The young woman said angrily, You really don't know what's good for you. It was us who let him go, but we thanked you. What kind of logic is this? Speaking of which, who are you? You're so secretive, you must have a true face that cannot be revealed. She stared at Suyu, looking like a little adult who had seen the world. Suyu couldn't help but laugh. He thought for a moment and said, Probably someone from the Mermaid Emperor's side. Hearing this, the young woman and the other two young men did not doubt him. No wonder you could stop the world's #1 thief, Half Moon. The young woman nodded in realization. The world's #1 thief? Was the sky-reaching rat a repeat offender? Suyu regretted letting him go so hastily. The young man with the defying intent sized Suyu up. It is said that the Mermaid Emperor is surrounded by experts. Brother, since you were able to capture Half Moon alive, you must not be an ordinary person. Do you have the guts to fight with me? Ha ha! The young man of the Ice and Fire Imperial family laughed. Ling Shan, when can you change your temper of wanting to challenge everyone you see? Our business has been delayed. How can we have time to learn from each other? The young woman slapped her head. I was so angry with Half Moon that I became muddle-headed. Let's go, the Heaven Immortal Tower meet is about to begin. Nitian Ling Shan looked a little regretful and said, Forget it, I'll find you next time. Haha, why next time? Brother, you must be one of the younger generation, right? The Heaven Immortal Tower is inviting outstanding talents from all over the world. Isn't he just right? Brother, why don't you come with us? You can also fulfill one of Ling Shan's wishes. The young man of the Ice and Fire Imperial family invited Suyu. Suyu smiled and refused. He was indeed one of the younger generation, but in terms of status, even the emperors couldn't compare with him. He could be said to be an ancient monster in their eyes. Wouldn't he be bullying others if he attended the meet? Chapter 1542. Brother, don't miss this meeting. The main purpose of this Heaven Immortal Tower meeting is to exchange the inherited divine technique. The royal members of the 4 empires are no exception, the young man of the Ice and Fire Imperial family said. Suyu was slightly surprised. The inherited divine techniques of the royal family were inherited from the divine warriors of heaven and earth. Would they be willing to hand them over? The repercussions of this great calamity are far too great. There is an extremely high chance that all life in the divine realm will perish. Even if it is a bit better, less than 10% will survive. If we continue to hold onto our treasures, then I fear that our inheritances will be severed in this great calamity. We might as well pass on this information to the outside world. This matter has been discussed and approved by the members of the royal family. In this special period, we have to do something special. We can't care about the ban of not spreading the inheritance. Suyu was tempted. He had already obtained the remaining inheritances of the 4 dynasties from the Empire of Darkness. However, he had never come into contact with the inheritance of the heaven-defying Empire, the Ice and Fire Empire, and the Taiching Empire. One of the inheritances was meaningful to Suyu. That was the yin-yang wings of Supreme Pole. As an emperor-based saint artifact of the former Taiching divine warrior, it could teleport hundreds of millions of miles. There must be a more powerful way to use it. As for the way to control it, it was obvious that it was most likely the Taiching imperial family. Who from the Taiching imperial family will come in person? Suyu asked. The young girl looked at him strangely and said, Could it be that you are interested in the inherited divine techniques of the Taiching imperial family? Hee, how ambitious! Unfortunately, our divine techniques are only passed down among the members of the 4 empires. Unless you can take out a precious technique that excites us, don't even think about it. Suyu said thoughtfully, Could it be that you are the main representative of the Taiqing imperial family? The young girl stared at him and said, "If it's me, you should feel lucky." The young man from the Icefire royal clan laughed. "Brother, although Miaoyu's tone is impulsive, her words aren't wrong. This time around, the representative of the Heaven Immortal Tower of the Grand Clear Royal Clan is an outstanding talent of the current generation, Taiqing Yunhui. She is the future successor of the Grand Clear Empire. Her personality is extremely inflexible and isn't as open-minded as us. This is especially so for the divine arts passed down by the royal clan. She isn't willing to spread them out easily." Taiqing Yunhui? Suyu pondered. He had heard of this person's name before. He was the most outstanding heir of the Taiqing Empire. In terms of status, he was even higher than Yongye Wuheng. In the Taiqing dynasty, its reputation was even inferior to the Taiqing Yunhuan, and it was revered by all. She had been at the third celestial layer for a long time and was extremely powerful. Even Yongye Wuheng back then had to admit defeat. Suyu had some understanding of this person's character. He was unyielding and extremely principled. Back then, the princess of the Taiqing dynasty was snatched away by Nitian Hanxing, and the war between the two sides was on the verge of breaking out. Later, the relationship was eased, and the Taiqing Yunhuan sent her to participate in the peace negotiations. In the end, she refused flatly, and it was only because she was unable to acknowledge the humiliation of the Grand Qing dynasty. Because of this, she was put under house arrest for 10 years as punishment, but she never lowered her head to admit her mistake. Suyu had no idea how to convince such a stubborn person. However, it would be a pity to just ignore the method to control the Tai Chi Yin-Yang wings. "All right, then I shall bask in your glory and pay my respects to all of you," Suyu said. Taiqing Miaoyu snorted. "It's good that you know. When you get there, don't embarrass us." Hee. Suyu smiled and nodded. The group of people re-entered the city. Far behind them, the Tongtian rat, who had left long ago, returned and stared thoughtfully in the direction they left. The Heavenly Immortal Tower was now the largest restaurant in the Taichu Empire. It used to be the property of Princess Yongye Chushua of the Empire of Darkness, the Tiannu auction house. Later, the empire was destroyed and fell into the hands of the enemy. It became the property of a capable subordinate of the Mermaid Emperor, and was renamed the Heavenly Immortal Tower. It gathered wine, women, and wealth, and was quite famous in the imperial city. That subordinate was the leader of the Dragon Elephant tribe, one of the 99 tribes in the southern part of the empire. He was born with amazing strength and extremely powerful martial arts. During the course of the expedition, his strength soared to level 3, and he killed many level 3 enemies in succession. He was one of the most important ministers under the Mermaid Emperor. This time, he would personally attend the Heavenly Immortal Tower assembly and host the assembly as an elder, adding to the highlight of the assembly. When Suyu arrived, the Heavenly Immortal Tower was already overcrowded with elites from all over the world. However, the elites were also divided into different levels. Elites of different levels gathered on different floors. The first floor was for elites who had not yet reached the level of deities. The second floor was for level 4 and level 5 deities. As for the third floor, it was for the most outstanding generation of level 3 deities. Under the envious gazes of the elites on the first floor, Suyu and the others walked directly to the second floor. "Stop, the second floor is not a place that anyone can go." At the entrance of the second floor's staircase stood a young man with a proud look on his face. He was from the younger generation of the heaven-defying empire, Nitian Aoyun, a level 4 deity. He was considered extremely outstanding among the younger generation. Taiqing Miaoyu frowned. "Nitian Aoyun, are you trying to pick a fight? We just chased the half-moon godly thief to the second floor. Why are you stopping us?" Nitian Aoyun seemed to have just recognized them. He sneered and said, "I was wondering who it was. It turns out to be the useless little princess of the Taiqing Empire. Please come in." "Humph. Taiching Miaoyu snorted and entered in a flash. Nitian Lingshan and the young man of the Ice and Fire Imperial family also looked displeased. However, when Suyu was about to enter, Nitian Aoyun reached out and stopped him. He looked Suyu up and down. "Who allowed you to enter?" Taiching Miaoyu looked back and said, "How dare you? Since he was invited by us, he naturally has the right to enter the second floor. Are you going to doubt our foresight and character?" "Haha, it's not that I don't trust you, but there are too many people trying to fish in troubled waters. It's never wrong to be cautious." Nitian Aoyun laughed. "You are doing this on purpose." Taiching Miaoyu's eyes narrowed. Nitian Aoyun smiled coldly and bared his teeth. "What do you think?" The momentum of the two gradually rose, colliding with each other and creating a fierce aura, attracting a lot of attention. Right at that moment, a gentle and heavy voice broke the atmosphere between the two sides. "You are behaving atrociously in my territory, aren't you looking down on me?" The young elites, who were originally discussing in groups of 3 or 5 and were indifferent to the outside world, immediately became spirited. "It's the owner of the Heaven Immortal Tower, the Dragon Elephant King," some of the elites said in surprise. They immediately smiled and came forward to greet him. TSK, the rumors are true. The Dragon Elephant King is hosting it personally. I'm lucky to meet this War King. This trip was not in vain. A group of people gathered around. Only then did they notice the dispute between Taiching Miaoyu and Nitian Aoyun. Haha, enemies don't meet each other. The contradiction planted by Nitian Hanxing in the past continues to this day. Poor kid, if he came alone, there might not be any trouble, but with Taiching Miaoyu and the others, he is asking for trouble. That Nitian Aoyun is not a good person. In the chattering discussion, on the first floor, surrounded by many deities, a broad-shouldered, bronze-colored, elephant-headed man slowly walked up. His powerful footsteps made the stairs creak, and everyone's heart beat faster. All of them felt great pressure. In particular, his eyes were full of coldness and ruthlessness, as if he had returned from a bloody and cold battlefield, making one's heart tremble. Even the deities of the same level felt a little uneasy in front of him. Many of the level 4 deities on the second floor also had awe and respect in their eyes. Under the gaze of the crowd, the Dragon Elephant King came to the stairs. Even the arrogant Nitian Aoyun bowed respectfully. "Greetings, Dragon Elephant King." Taiching Miaoyu and the others also saluted. "Greetings, Dragon Elephant King." The Dragon Elephant King nodded indifferently and looked around at them. What happened? Taiching Miaoyu was angry and told the cause and effect one by one. Nitian Aoyun was also reasonable and said, "His breath is hidden, and who knows if he is qualified to enter the second floor. I am strict, and it is also for the success of the convention." After listening, the Dragon Elephant King's cold eyes contained a deep penetrating power as he stared at Suyu. The Dragon Elephant King was slightly surprised that he did not see through the other's breath. "Release the divine light." The Dragon Elephant King took it for granted that the brilliance of the gods on the surface of Suyu's body was just a little special. Suyu was expressionless and shook his head lightly. "It's better not to avoid unnecessary trouble." Hearing this, Nitian Aoyun sneered. "Who do you think you are? In front of the Dragon Elephant King, will you cause trouble? You think too highly of yourself." The Dragon Elephant King looked displeased. "I don't like to repeat my words a second time. Let go, otherwise I have the right to ask you to leave, no matter who you are." Suyu turned his head and stared at the Dragon Elephant King, saying, "Really? This is the Taichu dynasty, my territory, and my words are the imperial edict. Unless you are Lord Mermaid Emperor." The Dragon Elephant King's aura suddenly became fierce, and he took a step forward. Everyone felt the pressure increase sharply, and either the divine power surged out, or they chose to retreat for fear of being affected. Nitian Aoyun sneered. "Reckless thing, contradicting the Dragon Elephant King? Haha." Suyu slowly walked down the stairs, looked at the Dragon Elephant King face to face, and said, "Although I am not the Mermaid Emperor, I can be an exception." In an instant, the divine light on his body dissipated, and his true appearance was revealed in an instant. Because of the angle, only the Dragon Elephant King could see it. The Dragon Elephant King's cold face was startled at first, as if he was recalling something, and the sudden changes turned into a touch of stiffness and fear. Large beads of sweat quickly accumulated on his forehead, and his eyes trembled in panic. His huge body trembled uncontrollably, and even his sharp eyes were no longer there, replaced by endless fear. "Greetings, Sue!" The Dragon Elephant King's throat was dry, and he was like an ant standing in front of a divine dragon, humble and insignificant and shocked speechless. Suyu waved his hand and interrupted him in time. "You know who I am, please keep my identity a secret, Dragon Elephant King." The Dragon Elephant King was dumbfounded and nodded repeatedly. Okay, keep it a secret." At the same time, thousands of thunders sounded in his heart. Didn't they say they would hold a party for a group of juniors? How come an ancient ruthless man at the level of an ancestor came? That was a character even more ruthless than the Mermaid Emperor. Was Nitian Guyun strong? He still died at his hands. Such a person, killing him was as easy as killing an ant. "Then, can I go to the second floor?" Suyu asked. The Dragon Elephant King smiled bitterly. Even if you wanted the heavenly immortal tower, he would not dare to say a word, let alone go upstairs. "Yes, no problem," the Dragon Elephant King said quickly. Nitian Aoyun, who was on the side, was a little dumbfounded. He did not accept the sudden reversal and said, "Dragon Elephant King, are you just going to let an unknown person go upstairs?" Dragon Elephant King was furious in his heart. King touched my pot. If he was an unknown person, wouldn't you be a piece of grass? Chapter 1543. But Nitian Aoyun felt ashamed and wanted to dissuade him, but when he saw the Dragon Elephant King's fierce eyes, he immediately swallowed his words. The Dragon Elephant King cupped his hands at Suyu. "Mr. Su, please." Suyu did not want to be too ostentatious and said, "The Dragon Elephant King is the host, so you go first." "Okay." The Dragon Elephant King, who had always been indifferent, was a little too polite. As he entered, he said, "Mr. Su, you don't know much about the Heavenly Fairy Tower, do you? Why don't I accompany you?" "No, the Heavenly Fairy Tower is a distinguished guest. Dragon Elephant King, go ahead and do your own thing. There is no need to entertain me," Suyu said lightly. The Dragon Elephant King's heart was bitter. All the distinguished guests present today were not as valuable as a strand of his hair. However, the Dragon Elephant King still had the ability to read people's expressions. Knowing that Suyu didn't want to reveal his identity, he didn't dare to continue chatting with him, lest he annoyed this big shot who was like a killing god. So, he said, "Mr. Su, enjoy yourself to your heart's content. I won't disturb you any further." Everyone watched the back of the Dragon Elephant King, and then looked at Suyu, who walked past Nitian Aoyun and ascended to the second floor. They were surprised. Who is he? Why is the Dragon Elephant King so polite? Is he the heir that the Mermaid Emperor is secretly training? If so, why have I never heard of him? Haha, no matter what, Nitian Aoyun has lost face. With his character, it is difficult for him to let this go. Besides exchanging legacies, it seems good to see an extra wonderful show. Sure enough, Taiching Miaoyu's laughter came. Haha, what a pity that this is not the territory of the heaven-defying empire. The implication was that Nitian Aoyun could not show off his power. Nitian Aoyun's gloomy face flashed with a hint of ferocity. Let's wait and see." He looked at Suyu with fear and deep hatred. "Don't be happy too soon." Suyu did not care, ignored him, and walked to the second floor. "Hey, you are a hidden man." Taiching Miaoyu felt relieved and looked at Suyu curiously. "The Dragon Elephant King is polite to you. You are not a nobody around the Mermaid Emperor, are you?" At this moment, she recalled that she hadn't asked for his name. It was not that he had forgotten, but as a member of the royal family of the 4 great empires, he had a sense of superiority in his bones. He looked down on Su Yu and was too lazy to ask him about it. Su Yu just chuckled and did not reply. Taiqing Miaoyu frowned and said, "Why are you so difficult to get along with?" However, Nitian Lingshan looked at Su Yu again, cupped his fists and said, "I have yet to ask for your name, brother." Su Yu paused for a moment before replying, "Yes, Mr. Su." The young man of the Ice and Fire Imperial family murmured, "Putting the word Gongzi in front of one's surname is a custom of the nobles in ancient times. Is Gongzi Su from a noble family?" Taiqing Miaoyu, who had been criticizing him, snorted and said, "In today's world, other than the Emperor's sacred sect, who dares to boast about being from a noble sect? All the outstanding heroes in the world are second to none in our sacred faction. Brother Jing Huan, don't overestimate him. He is nothing special. He was just courteous to the Dragon Elephant King. In the God realm, how can he compare to the real heaven rulers?" "Ha ha!" Jing Huan chuckled. "Then the senior Su Yu that you admire the most, is he also from the sacred faction of the 4 great empires?" Taiqing Miaoyu blushed. "What nonsense are you talking about? I don't admire him. I'm just curious." "Ha ha! Who was the one who grew up listening to his stories, and who once said that she wanted to marry him when she grew up?" Jing Huan burst into laughter. Nitian Lingshan, who was cold and silent, could not help but smile. The 3 of them had been good friends since they were young. When they were young, they had grown up listening to Su Yu's stories. All kinds of rumors about him, all kinds of incredible deeds, to them, who were deep in the lonely imperial palace, were as fascinating as an unknown legend. Especially 5 years ago, when he killed the number 1 king of the God realm, Nitian Gyun, pushing him to the peak of a legend. As for Taiqing Miaoyu, she admired him even more. There had been many outstanding men who came to propose marriage, but they were all rejected by Taiqing Miaoyu mercilessly. She also set a standard. If they could do any of the things that Su Yu had done successfully, she would consider marrying him. Although there were many outstanding men in the world, there was no shortage of people with unfathomable strength. However, many of Su Yu's deeds were legendary. Even their elders were amazed and did not dare to try, let alone the younger generation. Taiqing Miaoyu was ashamed and angry. She pulled out her sword and slashed at him. "Be ****. That's because I'm young and inexperienced. How dare you take it out?" She admired Su Yu not only because he had killed Nitian Gyun and defeated Nitian Hanxing, but also because of the dream of being a hero in the girl's heart. At that time, Su Yu had risen like a comet, illuminating the continent of the God realm. He was the person she longed for the most as a young girl. Now, with the passage of time, as she matured, she naturally knew that the gap between her and Su Yu was like a light year. In the eyes of a legendary figure like Su Yu, who was at the level of an ancient ancestor, she was just an inconspicuous speck among the masses. It was impossible for them to cross paths for the rest of their lives. The Ice and Fire Phantom still did not let it go and teased, "Oh? Then who secretly bought Su Yu's legendary booklet in the market last night? Ah? You saw it?" Taiqing Miaoyu was flustered, and her face was overflowing with shame. She was so angry that she stamped her feet. You, I will really kill you." The 2 of them chased each other on the 2nd floor, and it was very lively. Su Yu was surprised to hear that. He did not expect that he had such an image in the minds of the new generation. After chasing for a while, Taiqing Miaoyu felt bored. She put away her long sword and sighed. "Forget it, you can say whatever you want. He won't know anyway." As she spoke, she glared at Su Yu and said, "Anyway, don't be complacent. We are only qualified to come to the 2nd floor. Compared to those geniuses on the 3rd floor, we are nothing." "Understood," Su Yu said. Taiqing Miaoyu's eyebrows relaxed and she said, "Seeing that you helped me vent my anger, when the geniuses on the third floor rest, I will ask for Taiqin Yunhui's opinion. If you can take out something that can move her, it's not that she can't relent and pass on to you the inherited divine skill of our Taiqin dynasty. Thank you very much. Su Yu smiled. This young girl was a little arrogant, but overall she was reasonable and not bad. As for her girlish feelings for Su Yu could only politely decline and pretend not to know. The geniuses on the second floor quickly began to exchange the exquisite divine techniques that they had obtained. The news of the arrival of the catastrophe had been confirmed repeatedly, and no one doubted it. Therefore, most people did not hide much. They displayed their strongest divine techniques in exchange for powerful divine techniques of the same level, hoping that they could benefit before the catastrophe and increase their chances of survival. However, the exchange was also divided into circles, according to the factions and influences. The circle with the highest level belonged to the current 4 great empires. They lived together in groups and tacitly rejected the other geniuses, attracting envious gazes. Because what they were about to exchange were the inherited divine techniques from the empires. Chapter 1544. Those present were all level 4 youths of the empire. Including Su Yu, there were only about 7 of them. The Tai Qing, Ice and Fire empires, and Against the Heavens had 2 people each. Su Yu was alone. The strongest among them was the member of the royal family of the heaven-defying empire, Nitian Aoyun. Nitian Lingshan of the same clan was slightly inferior. The Dragon Elephant King presided over the third floor exchange, and had no time to attend to the first and second floors. Therefore, they set their own rules. First, those who wanted to exchange techniques had to display their techniques on the spot. If anyone wanted, they had to display techniques of the same level. Secondly, if there are several people competing, the winner will be given priority by sparring on the spot. Although there were only 7 people present, the intensity of the competition was far greater than the other dozens of people in the elite circle. Because what they were offering for exchange must be the inheritance of divine techniques from the royal family. Even the most insignificant divine technique was worth fighting for. Nitian Aoyun looked around and could not help but feel a sense of superiority. In terms of strength, who could compete with him? In terms of techniques, how many of the other 2 empires could compare to the divine techniques of the heaven-defying empire? However, his eyes still drifted to another member of the imperial family of the Ice and Fire Empire. His name was Ice Fire Wolf. His cultivation was similar to the Ice and Fire scripture, but the divine technique he cultivated was far superior to the latter. This was because he was one of the few princes who had grown up in the Ice-Fire Empire's army. He had made countless contributions and was specially bestowed by the Emperor of the Ice-Fire Empire to cultivate the third-ranked divine art of the Ice-Fire Empire, the Ice-Fire Tempest. In terms of grade, none of the members of the imperial family present practiced this technique. Ice-Fire Wolf had long set his sights before the gathering at the Heaven Immortal Tower. If anyone could display a divine technique that caught his eye, he could exchange the Ice and Fire Storm. Not only were the level 4 deities tempted, but many of the members of the imperial family on the 3rd floor were also envious. Then let me take the lead. Nitian Lingshan was the first to display. I'm going to display the inherited divine technique of the heaven-defying empire. It ranks 18th in the empire, and is called the inverted scale technique. Nitian Lingshan said. This technique is a secret technique to stimulate one's potential. It can be used in times of crisis. After using it, it can increase one's divine power, movement techniques, and physical strength by 30%. You can imagine how useful it is in certain situations. Dragons had inverted scales, and those who touched them would be enraged because the inverted scale was the essence of a dragon. This technique imitated the divine dragon, plucking out its reverse scale to stimulate itself. Everyone, watch carefully. The meridians in Nitian Lingshan's body flowed in reverse. His blood boiled and flowed back to his neck. Under the immense pressure, the boiling blood seeped out and formed something that looked like scales on his neck. Inverted scale art. Along with Nitian Lingshan's soft shout, the scales on his neck suddenly peeled off, and his aura suddenly skyrocketed. His divine power had increased by 30% in a short period of time. His movement technique had a clear improvement. His entire body was filled with energy, which was a sign of his physical strength increasing. The Taiching mystic Jade's eyes shone brilliantly. If she was in a stalemate with an evenly matched opponent, she could suddenly use this technique to stimulate her potential and surpass her opponent in all aspects. That would simply decide life and death. She had long coveted this technique. I have the Taiji cloud wings that are ranked 17th in the Taiching imperial family's inheritance. The Taiching mystical jade stood out right away. Taichi cloudy sun wings, Taichi yin cloud wings, one yang and one yin. Although there was only a difference of one word, the difference between the two was not small. The former was ranked 6th in the Taiching imperial family's inheritance divine technique, while the latter was ranked 17th. Taiching mystical jade used this technique on the spot. This was a movement technique, and in the face of a catastrophe, survival was the top priority. The importance of this technique was unimaginable, far surpassing the original 17th place. Nitian Lingshan observed the expressions of the others. Nitian Aoyun's mouth was full of disdain. He had also cultivated this technique, and it was much more advanced than Nitian Lingshan's. He did not bother to fight for it. Another Taiching imperial family's disciples' technique was not as good as Taiching mystical jades, so he did not have the right to fight for it. As for the ice and fire fantasy, he did not fight for it, as he had the heart to help Nitian Lingshan. The ice and fire wolf, which Nitian Lingshan was most concerned about, had a cold and indifferent expression, which disappointed him. He was not a fool. There was no reason to exchange the third legacy of ice and fire for the 18th legacy. As for Su Yu, his expression could not be seen. Sigh, if I had known this would happen, we could have traded privately and saved a lot of time. Why bother? Nitian Lingshan smiled bitterly and took out the detailed cultivation technique of the inverted scale art. The two were quite satisfied with the successful exchange. It's my turn next. The ice and fire wolf was eager to give it a try. He used the 15th ranked legacy divine technique of the imperial family, Heavenly Step. It was a rare sound wave attack divine technique. After it was used, its power was extraordinary. Nitian Lingshan, Taiching mystical jade, and Taiching Ren all joined the fight. As for Nitian Aoyun, he smiled disdainfully, disdainful of this technique. The ice and fire wolf was still cold and silent. Su Yu still could not see his expression. In fact, he had no expression to speak of. These low-level divine techniques did not interest him at all. In the end, Heavenly Steps was won by Nitian Lingshan. After recording it down, everyone displayed their divine techniques to each other, enjoying themselves. But the ice and fire wolf and Nitian Aoyun were indifferent, with no intention of exchanging their divine technique. It was only when the atmosphere gradually became cold that Nitian Aoyun shook his sleeves and sneered. Finally quiet? Exchanging a bunch of useless divine techniques, what a waste of time! His words had undoubtedly offended them all. Taiching mystical jade raised her eyebrows. Then why don't you take out a useful divine technique? You only know how to be sarcastic. Nitian Aoyun stood up and sneered. Then I'll let you bunch of trash see what a real divine technique is. He stepped forward and formed a seal with both hands. 30 feet away from the surface of his body, 2 white arcs flickered. With his body as the center, the arcs intertwined and intertwined with each other. Their speed became faster and faster, like bolts of lightning crackling all around. In the end, the white arcs disappeared because of the speed. But everyone present was strong. Although they could not see the arcs with their naked eyes, their instincts could sense that there were 2 rapidly rotating arcs, forming a vacuum sphere 30 feet away from his body. Anything that approached the sphere was cut into nothingness by the two arcs. Taiching Mystical Jade's expression was slightly serious at the moment, and she did not say a word. She did not like Nitian Aoyun, but she could not deny that this technique was extremely powerful. If the two of them were to fight, it would be difficult for her to break through this technique. In other words, she could only passively take a beating, and could not do anything to her opponent. Nitian Lingshan was shocked and took a deep breath. I didn't expect you to have obtained the 5th-ranked legacy of the heaven-defying royal family, the inverse energy diffraction technique. The cold and silent ice-fire wolf's eyes finally showed some emotion, and he spoke for the first time, praising, not bad. Nitian Aoyun looked around at the crowd with contempt. When his gaze landed on Taiching Mystical Jade, he said coldly, How is it compared to your useless divine technique? Taiching Mystical Jade gritted her teeth, unable to refute. When his gaze swept over the ice and fire phantom, he snorted disdainfully, causing the phantom to clench his fists in anger. Of course, Nitian Aoyun did not forget about Suyu. He mocked, My big shot, what do you think? Are you qualified to exchange with me? Using a great magical power to exchange for the qualification of a useless divine technique? Of course not, so he shook his head expressionlessly. Ha ha! Nitian Aoyun laughed. I thought you were some kind of expert. Turns out you were just pretending to be profound. Since you don't have the real ability, don't try to be a big shot. Looking disdainfully at the crowd, Nitian Aoyun finally locked his gaze on the ice-fire wolf. His gaze immediately softened with a hint of respect. He smiled and said, Brother Ice and Fire, I wonder if you have taken a liking to this technique? The ice-fire wolf nodded. The divine technique is not bad, but it's more than enough for defense. It's not suitable for me. Nitian Aoyun's expression stiffened, but he was not discouraged. He still had a sense of superiority. So, apart from Brother Ice and Fire, no one else is qualified to exchange for my divine technique? Haha, I've said it before, you bunch of useless divine techniques are just a waste of time. Next, I'd like to invite Brother Ice and Fire to demonstrate it, Nitian Aoyun said. The ice-fire wolf thought about it, stood up slowly, and said, All right, I want to exchange the ice and firestorm for a divine technique of the same level and above. I'll demonstrate it first. His words were concise and clean, and he expressed it directly with his actions. Taking a step forward, the ice-fire wolf lowered his knees slightly, and a cloud of ice and fire attributes emerged from his body at the same time. The two clouds blended with each other, and with the ice-fire wolf as the center, they condensed into a tornado that spread in all directions. Everything that came into contact with it was sucked into it. What was frightening was that inside the cloud of energy, the two opposing forces of ice and fire merged and annihilated each other. The power of annihilation that burst out in an instant surprised Suyu. This power of annihilation was even stronger than the superior extermination cannon and the world annihilation cannon. It had the ability to threaten a level 1 deity. However, the power of annihilation produced was too weak, not even enough to deal with a level 2 deity. However, if this technique was improved, could it produce enough power of annihilation? At that moment, the ice-fire wolf put away the divine technique and said, Does anyone want to exchange? When he looked around at Taiching Mystic Jade, Ice and Fire Scripture, Nitian Lingshan, and the others, all he got was envy and desire. He could not see any desire to exchange. The ice-fire wolf sighed silently. The result was not surprising. Haha, I'd like to exchange. Nitian Aoyun laughed. He had been waiting for this moment. The ice-fire wolf stared at him, his eyes calm. Although the inverse energy diffraction technique is not bad, it's not enough to exchange for the ice and fire storm. I'm sorry. After saying that, he walked down the stairs in disappointment. Wait, Nitian Aoyun said, I never said that I wanted to exchange for this technique. With a flash of his palm, a shiny golden scroll appeared. On it were the seal characters of the defiant heaven swallowing earth technique. Nitian Lingshan stood up abruptly, shocked. The third-ranked divine technique of the heaven-defying empire? How did you get this technique? Suddenly, Nitian Lingshan realized something and said, could it be arranged by Nitian Sha? Nitian Sha, a top-notch genius who lived on the first floor, was also one of the strongest geniuses of the heaven-defying empire. He was nearing 100 years old, and according to the traditional classification of the God realm, he would no longer be considered part of the younger generation in a few years. This time, he was the main representative of the heaven-defying empire. It seemed that he had arranged for Nitian Aoyun to use this technique to compete for the Ice Fire Wolf's Ice and Fire Storm. The Ice Fire Wolf, who was about to leave, turned around abruptly, his eyes bursting with joy. He said, Good. If you exchange this technique, I'm very willing. Nitian Aoyun laughed. I'm also very happy to be able to make an exchange with Brother Ice and Fire. The Ice Fire Wolf took out a ball of air that was a mixture of ice and fire, while Nitian Aoyun held the golden scroll in his hand. The two of them stepped forward to exchange. However, just as Nitian Aoyun touched the ball of air, a sharp sword light swept past. The Ice Fire Wolf and Nitian Aoyun retreated cautiously, glaring at the person who had attacked. Nitian Aoyun looked and laughed angrily. It's you? Do you have a death wish? The person he was looking at was none other than Suyu. Chapter 1545. The Ice Fire Wolf stopped in his tracks and turned to look at Suyu. Suyu was the only one he was concerned about. A person he could not even see through. He had killed countless enemies on the battlefield and had seen all kinds of enemies. There were many people who were good at hiding their auras. But to be able to hide one's aura so well that it could not be detected at such a close distance, this was definitely the first time. Imagine how dangerous it would be if he could assassinate Suyu at close range without being able to detect his aura? Oh? You are also interested in the Ice Fire Storm? That makes things difficult. The Ice Fire Wolf glanced at Nitian Aoyun. Nitian Aoyun was already furious. He laughed angrily. Suyu, are you sure you have the guts to compete with my big brother, Nitian Sha, for the divine technique? Suyu glanced at him, then looked away indifferently and shook his head slightly. In the eyes of the onlookers, shaking his head meant that he did not want to compete with Nitian Sha. Taiching Miaoyu and the others secretly heaved a sigh of relief. If it only involved the second level's exchange, so what if he competed with Nitian Aoyun? Who was afraid of him? But even a heaven ruler from the first level was involved. If they continued to participate, they would be overestimating themselves. If you don't have the guts, then get lost. I've said before, if you don't have the ability, don't pretend. Nitian Aoyun walked over and deliberately used his shoulder to knock Suyu. Good dogs don't block the way, get lost. Unexpectedly, this knock did not knock Suyu away. Instead, it was as if he had hit a mountain as hard as divine iron. Suyu did not move an inch, but Nitian Aoyun was bounced back. Nitian Aoyun was shocked. What a strong physique. Suyu said. I shook my head. I just wanted to ask, who is Nitian Sha? I've never heard of him. There were many strong men from the Nitian royal family. He had personally killed several of them, but he had never heard of this Nitian Sha. Hearing this, everyone's eyes widened. There was actually a weirdo who did not know who Nitian Sha was at the young elites meet? Anyone who had mingled with the young elites should have known Nitian Sha's name. Among the young elites of the three empires, Nitian Sha was recognized as the leader. Because he was close to 100 years old, he had cultivated the longest and was the most powerful. There was actually someone who didn't know of such an existence? How could they know that after Suyu descended to the God realm, the members of the heaven-defying royal family that he came into contact with were either Nitian Gyun or Nitian Hanxing? He barely cared about the rest of the members of the heaven-defying faction. Aren't you afraid that the wind will cut your tongue off? Nitian Aoyun was so angry that he laughed. How dare you boast shamelessly and say that you don't know the name Nitian Shah? Who do you think you are? An ancient giant or a heaven master? Suyu remained silent. To be precise, those so-called ancient big shots would probably tremble in fear if they were to stand in front of him. Looking at him indifferently, Suyu said, "You talk a lot of nonsense. Whether or not I know Nitian Shah has nothing to do with whether or not I'm willing to exchange technique. If he's right in front of me, I'll do the same." "Haha. Let's see if you have the ability." Nitian Aoyun laughed angrily. He had never seen a young hero so arrogant in front of him. "It's time to see what you've got. Don't count on the Dragon Elephant King to save you." As he spoke, 2 white arcs appeared all over his body and accelerated their rotation. It was the strongest divine technique he had ever cultivated, the inverse energy diffraction technique. It was this technique that caused many of the members of the royal family present to lose their luster. "Have a taste of the power of this technique." Nitian Aoyun laughed heartily and quickly operated the technique. However, at that moment, Suyu, who was standing in the same place, strangely disappeared. Nitian Aoyun cursed inwardly. Before he had time to react, his abdomen suffered a heavy blow. In the intense pain, he subconsciously screamed. His body stumbled backward, and the white arcs that were brewing on the surface of his body dissipated before they could show their amazing power. Swish, in the place where he had stood, a black shadow flashed, and Suyu's figure gradually appeared from blurry to clear. The Ice Fire Wolf's eyes flashed, and he said, "What a fast movement technique." He asked himself if he could do what Suyu did. Taiching Miaoyu and the others also had a strange gleam in their eyes. They were surprised. Was his movement technique that powerful? But thinking about it carefully, if he did not have a powerful movement technique, how could he have stopped the world's #1 godly thief for half a month? Nitian Aoyun stumbled back a few times and struggled to stabilize his figure. He glared at Suyu angrily. "You are despicable! How dare you sneak attack me?" Suyu stood with his hands behind his back, too lazy to explain. Taiching Miaoyu chuckled coldly. "You are a character who has experienced many battles. How could you say such childish words? You used your divine technique in front, and he attacked from behind. How is that considered a sneak attack? Do you want to stand still and wait for the power of your divine technique to erupt before you can attack? Otherwise, it would be a despicable sneak attack? Get lost. Who do you think you are to judge me?" Nitian Aoyun rebuked angrily. The Ice Fire Wolf frowned slightly and said coldly, "What she said is not wrong. In terms of sparring, you are indeed too childish and ignorant. Besides, Mr. Su has also pointed out another weakness of your divine technique, which is that it takes too long to cast and can be easily interrupted. If there is someone assisting you, you can cast it smoothly. If it is a one-on-one fight or on the battlefield, you won't even have time to cast it. In short, it is tasteless, but it is a pity to throw it away. It is tantamount to chicken ribs," the Ice Fire Wolf concluded. Nitian Aoyun was furious, but he did not dare to lash out. Instead, he stared coldly at Suyu. "I refuse to accept this. Use your divine technique to fight me." Suyu turned his head and looked at him. A thick demonic energy appeared behind him. Within the demonic energy, a blood-red eye appeared and shot out a ray of black light. Nitian Aoyun was shocked and immediately took out his treasures to block it. However, the black light was extremely strange and could not be blocked by any tangible object. Poof! Unsurprisingly, Nitian Aoyun's chest was pierced with a bloody hole the size of a bowl. As for the emperor-based saint artifact imitation, it was directly penetrated, as if it was nothing. Everyone gasped. Even the Ice Fire Wolf was shocked. What kind of divine technique is this? Suyu withdrew his demonic energy and glanced at Nitian Aoyun, who was seriously injured and vomiting blood. He turned his head and said, "So, do you choose my divine technique or the defiant earth-swallowing technique?" The Ice Fire Wolf took a deep breath and said, Mister's divine technique, of course. Su Yu took out a demonic beast skeleton, which was engraved with the words, 6 Paths of Natural Family. The two sides completed the exchange. The ice fire wolf held the skeleton fondly and murmured, "The demon's divine technique, 6 Paths of Natural Family. Good. Great, just what I wanted." Su Yu received the ice and fire energy, sealed it with a smile, and placed it in the 9 jade spiritual pearl for safekeeping. Cough, cough. Nitian Aoyan covered his bleeding wound and climbed up shakily. He coughed heavily a few times and fled to the first floor without saying a word. The ice fire wolf looked fearful and hurriedly cupped his fists to bid farewell. "I will leave first. Mr. Su, you'd better leave as soon as possible. Nitian Sha is not a reasonable person." After saying that, he quickly went downstairs, not daring to stay any longer. Nitian Lingshan also frowned and said, "Mr. Su, the ice fire wolf is right. You'd better leave quickly. Given his character, he won't let go of the ice and fire storm that he wants." Taiqing Miaoyu said, "Just leave if I tell you to. Don't try to show off. You're not Su Yu. There are no miracles. You can't escape from Nitian Sha even if you want to." Many of the onlookers also tried to persuade Su Yu to leave as soon as possible out of goodwill. Su Yu didn't care about Nitian Sha, but there was no point in staying on the second floor. "All right, I'll leave too. Miss Miaoyu, if you meet Taiqing Yunhui of the royal family, please ask her on my behalf if she can be lenient." Taiqing Miaoyu was amused. "You're already in trouble, and you still don't forget the legacy of the Taiqing royal family? Alright, since you've helped us vent our anger today, I'll go upstairs and see if they're resting for the time being." She turned and walked towards the first floor, but she had only taken a few steps when her expression changed, and she walked backwards. At the same time, she turned her head and kept winking at Su Yu. It was not difficult to see the anxiety and urgency in her expression. "Haha, isn't this Miss Taiqing Miaoyu? You're as beautiful as you were in the past." A teasing, magnetic voice drifted down from the attic, accompanied by the sound of footsteps, clearly falling into everyone's ears. The faces of those who were familiar with this voice began to change. There was respect and there was fear. "Nitian Sha. I'm lucky to be able to witness the leading figures of today's heroes. This trip was not in vain. Could it be that the heroes on the first floor are resting for the time being?" However, the sound of footsteps could be heard one after another. "They're all coming down. Is the exchange going to end so soon?" Under the expectant gazes of the many young heroes, 4 figures with powerful auras walked down one after another. Nitian Sha walked at the front, followed by Taiqing Yunhui, the Ice and Fire Divine Soldiers, and finally the Dragon Elephant King. As the local master, the Dragon Elephant King was walking at the back. The status of the 4 people was obvious. When the 4 people appeared, the second floor suddenly fell silent. Many eyes were focused on the 4 figures, or rather, they were focused on Nitian Sha. Nitian Sha had short yellow hair, a hooked nose and thin lip. He wore a faint smile. Taiqing Miaoyu looked displeased and retreated behind Nitian Lingshan and the Ice and Fire Divine Soldiers. His gaze naturally drifted to the 2 of them and fixed on Nitian Lingshan. He chuckled. "Kneel down." Everyone was stunned. Who did he want to kneel down? Nitian Lingshan? Nitian Lingshan crossed his arms in front of his chest. "Why? Haha, because you colluded with outsiders and suppressed the faction members of the same clan." Nitian Sha still wore a faint smile on his face. However, the next moment, he suddenly made a move and grabbed the air. Around Nitian Lingshan's body, dozens of dense mysterious silk threads suddenly appeared, binding his limbs, head, and torso. Putong! Uncontrollably, Nitian Lingshan immediately knelt on the ground. He exerted too much force on his knees, causing a pair of small pits to appear on the ground, which was filled with restrictive spells. Traces of bright red divine blood slowly flowed out from Nitian Lingshan's knees and filled the pits. Even though Nitian Lingshan kept struggling and his face turned red, he was like a puppet at the moment, unable to move freely. Ice and fire, Scripture shouted. When has he ever helped an outsider? Pa. But before he could finish speaking, a mysterious thread appeared near his lips, causing him to instantly lose the ability to speak. For the sake of the ice and fire divine weapon, I will only ask you to shut up. If you want to kneel, I don't mind moving a finger. Tian Sha smiled. The ice-fire divine soldier stood coldly with his hands behind his back. He looked at the ice-fire phantom Scripture in disappointment. Shut up. Don't embarrass the ice-fire royal family. The Scripture of fire and ice was extremely illusory. In order to curry favor with Tian Sha, the divine soldiers of fire and ice had not only ignored the fact that their own clansmen were being oppressed, they even helped outsiders to oppress them. Who was the one who embarrassed the ice and fire royal family? Tian Sha was like the king of this place, deciding everything with a single word. Finally, he swept his gaze over to Suyu, sizing him up from the corner of his eye. Are you the culprit who disrupted the meeting at the second floor? Tian Sha's smile was as light as the clouds in the sky. Yes, kneel down too. He had been too busy lately to update. Chapter 1546. Before Suyu could respond, the Dragon Elephant King broke out in a cold sweat and thought to himself, is this going to cause this ancestor to start a massacre? He hurriedly stepped forward with a face full of politeness. Young Master Nitian, please give me some face and don't start a fight here. How about it? If they infuriated Suyu, even the entire Heaven Immortal Tower would be razed to the ground, let alone defying the heavens. Face? Defiant Sha glanced at the Dragon Elephant King from the corner of his eye, his eyes filled with pickiness and contempt. Fine, I'll give you face. Let him kneel outside the building. That way, it won't be considered a dispute in your territory, right? Hearing this, the Dragon Elephant King felt humiliated and said angrily, Young Master Nitian, are you deliberately making things difficult for me? Tian Sha chuckled, King? In the Taichu dynasty, you can be considered a king, but in front of the heaven-defying royal family, put away your laughable title. Other than Sovereign King Nitian Hanxing, no other living beings are qualified to call themselves kings in front of me. You. The Dragon Elephant King was enraged. The members of the heaven-defying royal family were mostly arrogant people, and the higher their cultivation, the more arrogant they were. In front of everyone, Nitian Sha showed no mercy, making Dragon Elephant King unable to get off the stage. However, the Dragon Elephant King didn't dare to do anything to Tian Sha. He was the host, and he had plenty of ways to prevent Nitian Sha from leaving the Heavenly Immortal Tower. However, above Nitian Sha's head, there was an existence that made people revere him like a ghost, Nitian Hanxing. He was a supreme existence that could suppress 3 emperors of the empires. He had surpassed his biological father, Nitian Guyun, and had become the strongest man in the world. The most important thing was that this person had a rebellious will and could not tolerate any flaws in his eyes. If the Dragon Elephant King dared to kill Nitian Sha, then Nitian Hanxing would dare to slaughter half of the Taichu dynasty. The Dragon Elephant King didn't even dare to provoke such a person. Thus, his expression changed a few times, but in the end, he chose to swallow his anger. Humph, looks like you understand. Tian Sha sneered, since you understand, then scram? Dragon Elephant King didn't say a word and silently walked to the side, silently enduring many strange gazes. Sigh. This is an era of comparing backgrounds. The Dragon Elephant King is such a heroic figure, yet he has to endure humiliation and does not dare to resist. How pitiful and sad. Many people spoke via voice transmission and sighed endlessly with emotion. At this moment, the great figure that they revered was like dirt on the ground before another great figure, and he didn't have the slightest dignity. Because of this, their respect for Tian Sha grew. What no one knew was that Dragon Elephant King was sneering in his heart at this moment. No one knew better than him how ignorant and stupid the heaven-defying Shah, who seemed to be the only one in the world, was, because he was provoking a legendary figure that even Nitian Hanxing could not catch up to. With a single thought, the other party could easily decide Nitian Shah's life and death. But against Heaven Shah was completely unaware of it. His face was expressionless, but there was a deep sense of mockery hidden in the depths of his eyes as he stared at Nitian Shah. Nitian Shah's gaze fell on Su Yu once again, and he snorted through his nostrils. Still not kneeling? Su Yu glanced at him indifferently. In terms of arrogance, he was not even a tenth of Nitian Hanxing's, and in terms of strength, he was not even a hundredth of Nitian Hanxing's. Su Yu had no interest in arguing with such a person. He just looked at Taichin Yunhui, a woman who was dressed in a long black dress. She was classically elegant, yet cold and noble. Feeling Su Yu's gaze, Taichin Yunhui looked over. Her beautiful eyes glanced at him briefly before retracting like a dragonfly skimming the surface of the water. Her ethereal eyes seemed as if they could not contain the dust of the mortal world, and were rather cold. "I am Mr. Su, and I would like to exchange a divine technique with Miss Yunhui." Su Yu cupped his fist. Among the onlookers, many broke out in a cold sweat for Su Yu, feeling that he was facing imminent disaster. Who would have thought that he would not care about Nitian Shah at all, and instead discuss a divine technique exchange with Taichin Yunhui? His attitude showed that he did not care about Nitian Shah at all. Taichin Yunhui looked back at Su Yu again. Her gaze was like the clouds in the sky, sweeping past without any response. She was as cold as a goddess on the top of a snowy mountain, making it impossible for people to get close to her. She was truly a cold and stunning ice fairy. "Uncle Master." Taichin Miaoyu had circled around to her side, tugging at her sleeves, and said softly, "He has helped us before, could you please let him go?" Taichin Yunhui's ethereal eyes were still looking into the distance, and her voice was as ethereal as a palace in the heavens. "Do not meddle in the affairs of others." She could tell that Su Yu was trying to involve her in the dispute with Nitian Shah. She did not like this kind of tactic. The onlookers also realized why Su Yu had ignored Nitian Shah's threat, and had instead inexplicably asked Taichin Yunhui for a divine technique. It turned out that he was trying to curry favor with Taichin Yunhui at the last minute, and cozy up to her. Taichin Miaoyu had appeared to ask for help, because she understood Su Yu's intentions. She hurriedly pleaded, "Uncle Master." But Taichin Yunhui's gaze was distant, as if she had not heard anything. Nitian Shah sneered. "Kid, you are quite a schemer. Unfortunately, you have underestimated the wisdom of this ice beauty. Your dirty tricks will only increase her disgust. Haha, no one can save you. I will give you 3 breaths' time to kneel down immediately, or I will do it myself." His words were filled with a menacing threat. But in Su Yu's ears, it was like the warning of an ant to an elephant. He turned a deaf ear. He stared at Taichin Yunhui, thinking that this woman was extremely ambitious, and that she was probably not someone who could easily exchange divine techniques. "Looks like I can only try to get my hands on Taichin Yunhuan," Su Yu said helplessly. He really did not want to reveal his true form, but in order to learn the true method of controlling the yin-yang wings of Supreme Pole, he could only meet with Taichin Yunhuan. If Taichin Yunhuan was stubborn, he would have to resort to forceful means. If that is the case, then I shall take my leave. Su Yu did not even look at Nitian Shah, and turned to go downstairs. At that moment, Nitian Shah had not even started counting. After being repeatedly ignored by Su Yu, even a clay bodhisattva would get angry, let alone the arrogant descendants of Nitian Shah. "Haha. Good. I like your stubbornness. It is only interesting to tame a stubborn donkey into an obedient dog." Nitian Shah sneered and struck decisively. With the sound of wind and thunder, Nitian Shah disappeared. When he reappeared, A huge fist had punched through Su Yu's head. Ah! Tai Ching Mystic Jade screamed in shock. Ice and Fire Scripture and Nition Lingshan also turned their heads, unable to look. There were even bystanders who sighed silently. A young man with potential had died in the hands of the overbearing Nition Sha. The sounds of pity were endless. However, the next moment, the crowd was surprised to find that the contemptuous smile on Nition Sha's face had disappeared, replaced by a slightly gloomy expression. Then, they finally realized that the figure that Nition Sha had punched through was actually just an illusion. The real Su Yu was nowhere to be found. Looking around, there was no trace of Su Yu, not even a hint of his aura. He escaped? When did this happen? We couldn't capture his tracks at all? A genius who was very close to level 3 stammered. That's impossible. Even if it was teleportation, there should have been space fluctuations. Why was there no sound at all? Another very experienced genius was much more serious. Not just that. How strong is Nition Sha? His status as the number one of the younger generation is not just for show, but he also couldn't capture Mr. Su's tracks. A genius who was close to 100 years old had a burning gaze. In fact, it wasn't just them. The Ice and Fire Divine Soldier was also secretly shocked. He admitted that he did not carefully watch the last scene, but Su Yu's escape was really ghostly, giving him a shock. Even Tai Ching Yunhui, who was like a snow mountain fairy, once again cast an ethereal gaze over. Nition Sha was gloomy for a moment, then laughed hoarsely. "Haha, this is more interesting." The sinister intent in his words was several times thicker. Swish! His figure disappeared in an instant, and when he reappeared, he was already outside the Heaven Immortal Tower. The Dragon Elephant King was quite regretful. After all, he was an ancestor-level existence, and he no longer cared about a small fry like Nition Sha. But he still held a glimmer of hope in his heart and rushed out. The Ice and Fire Divine Soldier pondered for a moment, then also stepped out. Tai Ching Yunhui waved her sleeves elegantly, and a pair of strange Tai Chi wings appeared behind her. She disappeared instantly with the Tai Ching Magic Jade. "Let's go. Let's follow too." The Ice and Fire Divine Soldier and Nition Lingshan immediately followed, completely unaware of the situation. Not long after, the entire Heaven Immortal Tower was empty, all of them chasing after their breaths. Nition Sha flew out of the Heaven Immortal Tower and only saw the afterimage of Su Yu disappearing in the sky. He laughed angrily. "If I let you escape today, I, Nition Sha, will change my name from now on. Heaven and Earth Reversal Technique." Nition Sha stared in the direction of Su Yu and performed a powerful divine technique. The world around him rotated as if the universe was reversing itself. The Ice and Fire Divine Soldier saw this scene, and his eyes were blazing. The second divine technique of the heaven-defying empire, Heaven and Earth Reversal Technique. This technique could be used to reverse the universe and instantly activate spatial teleportation, allowing one to teleport a distance of 1 billion miles with a single thought. For the heaven-defying descendants who were good at fighting, this technique was a precious divine technique, almost comparable to the number 1 divine technique of the Tai Ching Empire. In a breath, Nition Sha disappeared without a trace. But he did not deliberately erase his breath, and everyone immediately followed his breath. For ordinary deities, 1 billion square kilometers was unimaginable astronomical geography, and it would take them at least a whole year to fly across it. Therefore, not long after, most people gave up. Only the Ice and Fire Divine Soldier, Tai Ching Yunhui, and a few others rushed over with strange technique. Su Yu left the Heaven Immortal Tower, glanced around, and locked onto the palace of the Mermaid Emperor. If he remembered correctly, it was the time for the 4 great emperors to discuss the matter. He would wait nearby and stop the Tai Ching Yunhuan when the time came. With a flicker of his mind, Su Yu continuously teleported 1 billion square kilometers and arrived near the palace. Landing on the eaves, Suyu stood with his hands behind his back, waiting for the meeting to end. After a few breaths, suddenly, Suyu looked back at the sky above his head. Although the mortals did not notice it, he clearly felt that at this moment, the universe had been changed by someone. At the same time, a figure with a murderous aura suddenly descended.